Berg reporting for Status Coup News. With me, I have Ron Placone.
You still can't say my last name, which, by the way, I think your first couple things were cut off anyway because we weren't quite live yet.
We weren't quite live yet. Are we live?
Yeah, you didn't do the wait thing, but we're good now. We're definitely live now. We're super live. We're as live as it gets. So please take two. Make sure you say my name wrong, and let's do this show.
Ron Placone, aka Ron Placone,
nailed it.
With me. Yes. All right. Hi, I'm Tina-Desiree, reporting for Status Coup News. Today is September 15th, 2022. We have a full show for you. We've got the railroad strike we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about GOP governors that are absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, engaging in human trafficking.
It is so freaking evil what they're doing. It is
so evil what
we're going to be talking about it, but it is, your blood will boil. But I do have my favorite tweet about it that I wish I could say I authored. I didn't, but I will give the author credit. So that's coming up. My favorite tweet on the topic that I felt was a very nice dunk. I will be sharing that at least to kind of, sweeten it all, I guess.
Don't leave us hanging.
Well, no, I'll wait until we do the story. I'm not going to share it now.
I thought you were going to share it now.
No, I'm not going to share it now. This is like what's coming up.
Okay, coming up. So normally we do the countdown. We're not doing the countdown today, so we're waiting for some people to filter in. So remember to smash the like button, share the stream. That's how we build our audience. It's really important. We already have our first super chat. Thank you, Venetia David. Ready to get my news on with Ron and Tina. Woohoo!
Thank you very much, Venetia. Good to see you. Hope all's well in the UK. Can't wait to see you on the road. And folks, smash that.
I'm going to call you Ron Placone.
Huh?
Ron Placone. It's just got a ring to it.
It does. I mean, yeah, it does kind of roll off the tongue. I get it. It's Ron Placone. But yeah, it's Ron Placone. And smash that like button. Rumor has it. I heard that the like button was talking smack on everybody's mom, and that is messed up. So you got to smash that like button. That like button, I saw that like button at a bar, and it was like, you on the YouTube. Yeah, your mom, she sucks. Like, why would you? That's so, come on. Where'd you get those insults? The 90s called. What are you doing? So, don't take that from the like button. The like button's a bully. Smash that like button. That's what you got to do right now on this stream. Smash that like button so we can show it who's boss together. We will all show that like button.
So I think we can get rolling here. We've got some people still filtering in. I wanted to start the show talking about a story that started breaking on Twitter last night, became more full-bodied this morning. But basically, we have two GOP governors, as far as I'm concerned, that are engaging in some form of human trafficking. We had two planes that originated from San Antonio, Texas. They made a pit stop in Florida, and then they made two other pit stops. The first train stopped in South Carolina, the second stopped in North Carolina, and then they both went on to Martha's Vineyard. This is part of a program that Ron DeSantis has put in place. Florida legislator appropriated $12 million to fund this program, and basically the idea is they're going to be sending illegal immigrants to what they are calling sanctuary states and cities. As far as I'm concerned, though, this is human trafficking. They're claiming this is perfectly legal under federal law. I find that they might be pushing that, in my opinion, and it's certainly not moral or ethical. It's kind of disgusting that they are basically using these people as pawns for a political theater game. We should note that Ron DeSantis had a videographer on one of the flights who was filming the whole thing. So I'm sure that there's going to be video to come that he's going to be using in his campaign videos and whatnot. Ron, what are your thoughts on this? Because I'm pretty disgusted.
I mean, how could you not be? Let's call this what it really is. This is a political move. And it is a very disgusting one at that. This is a total political move. It's steeped in cruelty. This is not even just like some policy dispute. This is just a cruel behavior. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to just basically, like you said, use these people as pawns. I think it's even worse than that because it's not like you're also, it's very abusive. Like these people, like most of them do not really know much English, and no one's really telling them what's going on. I think in some cases they had high school students who were taking Spanish act as the translators. So imagine you come to a place, which, let's be honest, folks, we are not the shiny beacon on the hill. We never frickin' were, but it's gotten even worse now. The people who come here from other countries, they're coming here because they're absolutely desperate. In most cases, they're either crushed by our sanctions or our economic policies, or they're climate refugees. And guess what? Their country isn't the main culprit of the damage. Countries like ours are. So they're not coming here because we're some beacon on a hill. They're coming here because they have no other choice. I'm sure they wish they had a better option. Mm-hmm. And this is what we do. We use them as pawns in a cruel political football game to send them to these sanctuary cities, because what they want to do is they want people in Massachusetts to be like, oh, we'll help you, we'll welcome you, and then they're going to laugh at them like, oh, look at them, they're helping these people and it's ruining things, because of course all of our problems are caused by undocumented people who are just coming here to try to get a chance because they have no other option. That's the problem. And I mean, it is truly imagine being treated like that if you were in a different country. Just imagine being treated that way. You don't know the language. They just ship you in a plane. You don't know where you're going. I mean, if you were an American, like if it was me and I was in the middle of Texas and they said, hey, we're getting you a free flight to Martha's Vineyard, I'd probably be like, thanks. No offense to all my Texas friends. Texas is a wonderful place. There's lots of wonderful cities. But this is not that situation. These are people who have no clue what's going on. They're trying to figure things out. They might have families. And you're just putting them on these planes and taking them around. If other countries did this, we would be screaming at the top of our lungs, calling it a crime against humanity and using it as an excuse to invade them, especially if they have some of that oil we like so much. But when we do it, it's just politics. It's just politics. And I don't know. I feel like somebody on this show has been saying Ron DeSantis is the most dangerous person in American politics. I don't know who it is, but I would contend that is an accurate statement, because this is what he's doing just as governor of Florida.
Right. No, it's pretty scary. As far as Martha Stewart as a location that was chosen, Martha's
Somebody please clip this out. That's amazing. Somebody please make something of this.
That was good.
Somebody think of me, Tina holding a Mai Tai or some kind of drink, and it's just like, Tina live from Martha Stewart, Massachusetts. Oh, that's perfect.
Martha's Vineyard. That's so funny. Freudian slip there. Well, I had in my brain that this is where the wealthy elites go on vacation, especially if they're from New York. So no doubt Martha Stewart vacations on Martha's Vineyard. But why do you think that was chosen as a location? I have my thoughts that perhaps it is because DeSantis and several other of the GOP members view Martha's Vineyard as like I just said, a vacation home for the wealthy elites. So we're going to dump these folks into your, rich, wealthy, liberal backyard and show you, we're going to own you. You're going to see how awful it is. And that actually might end up, sort of backfiring, because I do think a lot of the folks that live in these areas want to help the migrants. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I certainly can't speak for the people who have homes in Martha's Vineyard. I have no clue one way or another. I mean, I'm not one of them. No. I think it's more like it's Massachusetts, and that is one of the states that, comparatively speaking, has a more, I feel weird using the word welcoming, because I don't think it's fair to say that any state is welcoming, but I would go as far as to say less severe compared to other places. That being said, look, nowhere in the United States is anywhere resembling good. And we're certainly not, I mean, even, Massachusetts, which is considered one of the more left-leaning places in the country, and Provincetown, which is, considered to be like a very open-minded place. And in some ways it certainly is. And I always have a wonderful time when I go there. Don't get me wrong. But dude, that is neoliberalism turned up to frickin' 11. They exploit most of the people working in the summer that they come there. I mean, it is not, some big lefty.
No, it's not.
It's nowhere close to that. Compared to a lot of other places, is it better? Here? Yeah. But no, it's still very much a neoliberal hellscape. They, like workers are very much exploited up there.
Right.
My wife grew up in that area, so I know a thing or two about it. And yeah.
No,
so
I know you do. That's why I asked. But Ron, let me ask you this though. I agree with you. It's not a lefty haven. It is very much a neoliberal, wealthy neighborhood.
Well, let me add one other quick thing I would add to that too. I think in some ways, and I'm no fan of this guy either, but I think in some ways it also could be like a little subtle dunk on Obama.
Oh, I don't disagree, and we can talk about that.
And I'm no Obama fan, but like it's just kind of partisan hackery, and so they're just kind of dunking on.
That's exactly it. It's partisan hackery. This is the viewpoint of the GOP or the right-wing extremists, right? So they don't understand the difference between a neoliberal Democrat and a leftist, right? That there is no difference in their mind. So that nuance doesn't exist. So in their mind, they're owning the libs right now. And, we might have our disagreements with a lot of the Democratic Party, lines that they take. We obviously criticize them a lot. But that nuance is missing when it comes from the GOP because they simply don't differentiate between somebody that's on the left and somebody that's a neoliberal, right? They're all communists.
And I feel like that goes like across the board too. It's not just like the GOP elite that does that. It's like the entire kind of right sphere. Not everybody, but a lot. And that really, I mean, that is really annoying to me. And I've even had this conversation with some people where like I've been on panels where like I'm the only lefty and everyone else is kind of more right leaning. And I've just been like, look, it's so frustrating that you guys lump me and Nancy Pelosi in the same vein. Meanwhile, like I differentiate the difference between, like a GOP lackey.
Populist. Yeah.
And well, I mean, yeah, that's not really a thing, but I know what you mean. But I recognize the difference between a classical conservative and a libertarian and like a GOP elite. Like I recognize the difference between all those things. I still disagree with all of them on almost everything, but I recognize the difference. Meanwhile, we're not given 100%. The same courtesy. Like again, not everybody. There's some people out there like on the Twitters and the YouTubes that they do, note the difference between an actual leftist and like the Democratic establishment. But I feel like often than not that they don't give us that same courtesy.
So we do have a video where U.S. Rep. Keating, who represents not Martha Stewart, Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard is a place. Martha Stewart is a person. The news, ladies and gentlemen, we got this.
Let's play that video so we can hear what he has to say about the situation.
We contacted the governor's office because they do have the resources and the agencies to support dealing with these issues. And we had a great response from the governor's office and Secretary Sutters. MEMA which is the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, as you know, Ted, was put into play. And we saw them spring to action. And actually, it's quite a contrast. You had a Republican governor from Florida and a governor here who was also a Republican. And it was like the tale of two governors. One using public resources rather extravagantly. Evidently, maybe I heard on the Vineyard that they were telling me he sent his own video photographer to get all this, so he could use it for his own advantage. And then his paid for political spokesperson was immediately taking credit, if you want to call it credit, for doing something that was clearly a political stunt. Not even an original one, by the way. You and I might remember about a year ago, I think we were talking about Ted Cruz, another political aspirant, was talking about doing the same thing in the Vineyard and putting in legislation. So I think this is clearly what it was.
Did he call Ted Cruz a political aspirin?
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
I think he said.
Oh, I thought he said, and I was just like, that sounds really funny, but I also don't like it because aspirin does
on the nose.
Yeah, well, aspirin helps solve a problem, which Ted Cruz has never done in his life.
No.
But that's still very funny sounding.
It is very funny sounding. So NPR also had a report that came out this morning, and they actually spoke with a couple of the migrants there in Martha's Vineyard. I wanted to pull that up just so we can get that viewpoint, since these folks were actually able to go there and speak to these individuals that are there. Let's pull up that article. Migrants on Martha's Vineyard flight say they were told they were going to Boston. Right off the top, I find that to be very interesting, that they were told they were going to Boston, yet they ended up at Martha's Vineyard.
Well, did they fly into Boston first? They might have.
No, I don't think so. Not according
they
to.
didn't even. Okay. I thought,
so my understanding of the flight pattern was that the two flights originated out of San Antonio.
Right.
Both went to Florida, and then they had two different layovers, one in North Carolina, one in South Carolina, and that they both ultimately ended up on Martha's Vineyard. So
gotcha.
Now, whether that was also supposed to be a layaway and that they were supposed to go on to Boston, I guess that's not really clear at this point. We're probably going to be hearing more about the story later in the week. And I doubt that this is going to be the only time that Ron DeSantis and Governor Abbott pull this. I think they're both probably talking to each other about how to do more of these things, because they're both going to use this as a, like we said at the beginning of the live stream, a political pawn of sorts. Anyway,
what a horrible way to spend a life.
Yeah.
I mean, what a terrible. I mean, these are elected legislators, and this is what they do. I mean, and I know that, like, as people who live in the United States, it's just Thursday for us. But holy shit. I mean, take a step back and realize how gross this is. What did your governors do today? Oh, they abused people. They just abused people, messed with their heads, sent them on this plane, didn't tell them where they were going, shuffled them around to try to get some political dunks because they think that all of our problems are the result of some of the most powerless people in the world who are just coming here because they're absolutely desperate.
Right. I mean, and this is what they're doing instead of actually helping their constituents, I might add. It's red meat for a certain portion of the Republican voter base. It is red meat. But the reality is that these folks are being told to blame their miserable outcomes on the migrants, right? What's really at issue here is the income inequality in the country. It's the fact that the legislation is bought and paid for by wealthy elites. And it's not just the Republicans, it's the Democrats too. And we've had a withering away of, just a quality of life in the country because people are making less money and they're working longer hours and good jobs have disappeared. That's not, a crazy statement. This is just the way things have been going for decades now. And, the left doesn't provide what I call a left exit to the income inequality. And what we end up with is guys like Abbott and DeSantis basically saying, blame the migrants. Right. It's their fault. They're stealing your job, right? So I wanted to turn to this NPR article because I also found it interesting. Halfway down through the article, I'm going to read some of this. A spokesman for Texas Governor Greg Abbott and his office was not directly involved in these plans. So Greg Abbott is basically saying, even though these flights originated from San Antonio, that he wasn't actually involved in the plans. I find that hard to believe, but who knows? It could be. This is what he said. Our office has had conversations with Governor DeSantis and his team about supporting our busing strategy to provide much needed relief to our overwhelmed and overrun border communities, the spokesperson said. Though we were not involved in these initial plans to Martha's Vineyard, we appreciate the support in responding to this national crisis and helping Texans. Governor Abbott encourages and welcomes all his fellow governors to engage in this effort to secure the border and focus on the failing and illegal efforts of the Biden-Harris administration to continue these reckless open border policies. The unannounced flight drew anger from Massachusetts officials. We have the governor of Florida hatching a secret plot to send immigrant families like cattle on an airplane, said State Senator Dylan Fernandez, who represents Martha's Vineyard. Shipped them, women and children, to a place they weren't told where they were going and never alerted local officials and people on the ground here that they were coming. It is incredibly inhumane and depraved thing to do. I have to agree with that. NPR was able to interview 3 of the migrants late Wednesday. They, the migrants, told us that they had recently crossed the border in Texas and were staying at a shelter in San Antonio, NPR's Joel Rossi said on Morning Edition. The migrants said a woman they identified as Perla approached them outside the shelter and lured them into boarding the plane, saying that they would be flown to Boston where they could get expedited work papers. She provided them with food. The migrant said Perla was trying to recruit more passengers just hours before the flight. So she's luring them onto the plane and lying to them. Andres Duarte, a 30-year-old Venezuelan, said he had recently crossed the border into Texas and eventually went to a shelter in San Antonio. She, Perla, offered us help that never arrived, Andrea said. Now we are here. We got on the plane with a vision of the future of making it. He went on to explain why he boarded the plane with so little information in hand. Look, when you have no money and someone offers you help, well, it means a lot. In Martha's Vineyard, the migrants were staying at a church shelter while local authorities and nonprofit organizations figure out what's going to happen next. Lisa Del Castro, who runs a homeless shelter on the island, said resources were initially scarce. Everything from beds to food to clothing to toothbrushes, toothpaste, blankets, sheets. I mean, we had some of it, but we did not have the numbers that we needed.
So some of the richest people in the world live there.
Yeah,
some of the richest people in the world live in Martha's Vineyard, just for the record.
Right. And maybe possibly Martha Stewart.
Well, someone in the comments actually said that she does. So I don't know if that's true or not, or that she has that house there. I don't know. I can't verify that, but
it was a very funny Freudian slip nonetheless. But this is like just, it's just terrible. So these folks are coming up to our border into our country because 9 times out of 10, these are the repercussions of actions that we have taken, that the United States has taken abroad, whether it is to overturn democratically elected governments that are left-wing and pro-worker and install far-right fascist dictators. We've done this multiple times, whether it's because we're exploiting their resources for our benefit, whether it's because of climate change policies, drug trade policies, you name it. These are the inevitable outcomes. And instead of us actually trying to deal with these crises in a humane way, this is what's happening. And it's really unfortunate because I think migrant workers are going to increase in numbers, especially as climate change gets worse, especially in areas that are, much warmer than here. I mean, we've had heat waves here in California. I can't imagine in some other parts how much worse it is. Droughts are going to get worse. All of these things are going to just increase in their likelihood. So this is where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a shame because, instead of kind of, like giving people a fair shot and giving people a fair path to citizenship and stuff like that, and kind of seeing it as, okay, we're going to be stewards to the earth together and try to fix this together. And instead we, just demonize people who come here. And it's so incredibly sad, but they just need to play the record of scapegoats. That's all these policymakers have, and it's not just Republicans. Democrats do similar stuff too.
They do.
It's like if we're not blaming the LGBTQ community today, we're going to blame the immigrants. Then we'll shift back to the LGBTQ community. Then we'll blame any and all activists. Then we'll blame people who are upset about police brutality. Then we'll blame Black Lives Matter. Then we'll blame. The list goes on and on. I will share. I thought this was my favorite tweet about it. This is from John Darnell, lead singer of the Mountain Goats. If you've never listened to the Mountain Goats before, I recommend it. And he tweeted a couple hours ago, "Wow, the libs are so triggered that I treated human beings like livestock today. The Lord, who explicitly condemns this sort of behavior, is pleased with me today. Please donate to my campaign." So shout out to John. That's a pretty funny tweet. That's an epic tweet.
Pretty funny. No, so. It's right on brand because that's exactly what's going to happen. He's going to.
The reason
DeSantis put a videographer on that plane is to record all of this because he's going to cut it into campaign videos. God knows how gross those are going to be. But this is entirely a political ploy. And what kills me is that the Florida legislator earmarked $12 billion for this program that is basically designed to move migrants into what they're calling sanctuary cities and states, right? $12 million. That's taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
That's funding this. Private charter planes, which are expensive. This is insane.
Yeah, think of all the better things we could do with
they
that.
Could be doing with this money. Yeah, it's absolutely asinine.
That could fund a jobs program in a state.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, or at least help fund it. I mean, so
exactly.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
It is remarkable. On that note,
smash the like button because you know who is responsible for all these countries' ills? The like button. That's one of the biggest culprits, and you got to smash it. You want to save the planet? Start with smashing the like button.
All righty then. On that note, Ron, let's talk about the pending railroad deal. So we also have breaking news this week in regards to railway workers possibly going on strike. the strike being averted by a deal that was reached that Biden has his fingers in. I do want to talk a little bit about what led us to this place, because this didn't come out of left field. If people recall, there was a potential strike that almost happened previously, but a Trump-appointed judge last February put the kibbutz on it. He said it was a minor dispute, so he prevented them from striking. I don't think this was a minor dispute, obviously, because it led to where we are today. Part of what we have to talk about is the consolidation that we have seen in the railway industry, like every other industry out there, right? So at one time, there were hundreds of railway companies doing this job. About 40 years ago, it got consolidated down to maybe 35 major railway companies doing this job. And now, because of further consolidation, we're down to 7. There are 7 of these railway companies. Some of them are multinational. One in particular is owned by Warren Buffett, right? This is the one that was involved in the potential strike last February. One of the things that they were asking for is to just not be on call 365 days a year. These folks literally are on call 365 days a year. They were also being asked to cut down the crews to one person. So you're working a 12-hour shift, and now the railway company is basically saying, we're going to cut your crew down from 5 people to 1 person, which is not only incredibly dangerous, but can you imagine you're being called in at 2 a.m. because you're on call. You were actually scheduled to go in at like 6 or 7 a.m, but you get a text that wakes you up and says, we need you to come in now. You have to oblige because that's part of your job. You go in at 2 a.m. You've had very little sleep. You're a little bit groggy. They're basically saying there's no crew. It's just you now.
It's just you.
And you're
in
going
charge
on a 12-hour shift. So
Well, and Jordan did an interview a
we're
couple
gonna
hours.
play some of it.
We're going to play some of it, where they really talked about, the guests really talked about what the day-to-day is like, where it is exactly like how you described. I mean, and to add on to that, I mean, he was saying that most of us kind of sleep in 2 to 3 hour increments because we never know when the computer is going to be updated and we're going to need to be on a train right away. And also, the way they're compensated, the way this gentleman explained it, they only get paid when they are on the train. So when they're waiting for the next train to go, and in most cases, they're not home, they're in a foreign place, they're in a hotel room, they're just hitting refresh on a computer to find out how soon do they have to get on a train, and it could be any time.
Their meals are not.
This is not how you treat workers. I mean, this is just, and this is what happens when you have consolidation and consolidation and consolidation, and the wages get diminished, and the quality of how workers are treated gets diminished and diminished through the 60-year defanging of unions. And, we're here. We're at feudalism's door. We're not heading towards it. We're in it. We are in a feudal. I mean, the robber barons had better time off than we do now. Medieval peasants had more frickin' vacation time than a regular American does now. Medieval frickin' peasants. So this is feudalism. This is where we're at.
In fact, Ron, the profits these companies are pulling in are huge. So BNSF, which is the company that was looking to strike last February, that's owned by Warren Buffett, in 2029, they made about $5 billion in profit. Yeah. That's not revenue, that's profit.
Yeah, $5 billion. And the people whose labor allows that profit to happen aren't being compensated fairly. I mean, if they were compensated even close to what their labor develops, they'd be compensated at least 6 or 7 times that much. 100%. But they're not even being compensated just a fair wage for the work that they do, and just treated fairly. I mean, right now it's like they're really pushing. I mean, we should get to the interview, but it's like they're really just pushing for being able to go to a doctor when they're freaking sick, and not being fired if in having sick days. You have a job that demanding? I mean, first of all, any job should have sick days.
Not paid or unpaid, Ron. Here's the thing. They had no sick days, period. Not just paid sick days. They had no sick days, unpaid or paid. That's insane. Absolutely insane. It shouldn't
be legal. I mean, it shouldn't be legal. But when you have... Well, there's probably, there's probably some loopholes. And then you look at stuff like right to work legislation. I mean, that's the stuff And that's, you know, a state by state thing. But it's like when you have stuff like right to work floating around where that's how you can get away with that kind of stuff. Policies like
yeah, because they were still under a union contract and they had that in the. That's what's shocking to me is how did it digress to such a low point to begin with, that they're really fighting for their souls right now, so to speak. But Ron, let's go ahead and play this part of this interview so people can hear straight from a railway worker what they've been dealing with.
I have vacation days. I have personal leave days, but unless you prearrange them, they don't let you use them. And where I work, there's 60 members and they allow one prearranged day for that calendar day. So you may have 60 people fighting to get that one day. Not being fired for taking a day off to go to the doctor. I'd like to see how that's going to work. We used to be able to take a week off with no retribution from the company and everything. We worked a lot, but we had the ability to take a week off to go to the doctor, do whatever we needed to, and that was always unpaid as well. So over the last few years, they've been really tightening up on letting us take time off, and it's just in an effort to keep fewer people on the payroll to maximize their profits. We started out asking for 15 paid sick days a year, which I don't think is too much to ask. A lot of other places have more. And then they, in bargaining in good faith, they just asked for 15 non-compensated days. And it seemed like the carriers weren't budging on anything. The political aspect of it, I've been asked quite a few times if we were worried about affecting the midterm elections or anything like that. And if we do, we do. We need our politicians to stand with blue collar workers and union workers. They need to stand with labor. And if they're not, then let's affect the elections. We need to vote. We need to make sure that they stand with us.
All right. So on that note, I actually want to pull up the union agreement and so we can get a lay of the land as to what this current agreement is. Obviously, the union members are going to vote on this. So Colin, can we pull up that CNN article that goes through the tentative, I should say, agreement? All right. So
can I make a dispute with the headline already? Like, not everyone's agreed to it. I mean, it's like they're saying, "Oh yeah, they agreed. It's fine." I mean, and Jordan pointed that out in his interview. Like Biden's already celebrating. You know, the ink has not dried yet, and it looks like they're not offering a great deal. So we'll see what happens here. They might avoid a strike, but it's amazing that the corporate media is just. I mean, this isn't news. These are just press releases. If you want real news on what's actually going on, you have to come to places like this that is actually groundbreaking, interviewing workers and talking to workers about what is going on the actual railroads.
Yeah, no, yes, I agree. The headline's misleading. But I wanted to bring this up only because I wanted to read what was in this agreement. So obviously the union workers still need to vote on this, and it's not entirely clear whether they will all say yes. I mean, we could get to a place where they're like, yeah, this isn't good enough. But let's look at it so we know exactly what the meat and potatoes is here. So the tentative agreement will exempt time off for certain medical events from carrier attendance policies, according to a joint statement from the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen and the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers. The union said if this issue was not addressed in the new contractors, workers would strike at 12:01 Eastern Friday morning, that would be tomorrow. A points-based attendance policy made it hard for workers to take time off for sick leave because members would lose points, and the only way to get them back was to work more or face penalty according to the unions. It's crazy, right? So members will get, this is what we're agreeing to now, members will get one additional paid day off as well as voluntary assigned days off. So as we just heard in this interview, initially they were asking for 15 paid days. Then they were just asking for 15 days, non-paid. Yeah. Like that's
we'll give you one day. We got one day for you.
Most importantly, for the first time ever, the agreement provides our members with the ability to take time away from work to attend routine and preventative medical care, as well as exemptions from attendance policies for hospitalizations and surgical procedures, the statement read. The fact that they didn't already have that is fucking disgusting. I just can't even believe that. The agreement also gives union members an immediate 14% raise with back pay dating back to 2020. It also includes raises totaling 24% during the 5-year life of the contract that runs from 2020 through 2024. It also gives them cash bonuses of $1,000 a year for the 5-year life of the contract. So that would total $5,000 in total, $1,000 a year. There will be no copay or deductible increases or changes to healthcare. Monthly healthcare costs will freeze at the end of the 5-year agreement, according to the statement. The agreement will now go to members to vote on for ratification.
So does that mean that the healthcare could go up during the agreement?
No, my understanding from this is that.
I mean, the way it's worded, it's saying it will freeze at the end. Is that what it says?
At the end of the 5-year, yeah. So no. Costs will freeze. Yeah, okay. So meaning that if you're expecting some big balloon thing to happen after that, they're saying it's not. But you know what? That could change.
Well, that means, does that mean it could go up in the interim? I mean, the way that's worded, it sounds like it might, because I know like some of the concerns people have expressed is they're like, well, we don't know if this is even going to add up to being a pay increase because if our healthcare costs go up and general like cost of living index and stuff like that.
So what will not increase is the copay or deductible payment. So that's part of the agreement. So there will, as far as the premiums on the back end, but I guess that they're thinking if you're not paying a copay or deductible and the insurance premium has to be increased and the employer picks it up. I don't know. That's really, there's a lot of this that's just not entirely clear at this point.
Yeah.
It's very,
there's some things that, and you really hope it is vague. And sometimes that's intentional. Like that is a bit weird sounding, just even from the article / press release itself that say like, well, at the end, we won't like, we're going to freeze. We're going to freeze at the end or we're going to freeze now. When is this freeze happening? I think the better thing would be now. It should freeze now. Like it should just be like frozen, not going to go up. These are your benefits. That's the way it should be. Is it going to be that way? It sounds like maybe not. I mean, it's like you really hope that they, like the union too, has the right folks going to bat for them, which I don't know if they do or don't. I have no idea. I mean, based on the way it's been going, I'm kind of concerned they might not. But like, I can't say for sure. But you really hope like they have the right people in their corner. And if not, they're not going to accept a crummy offer, and they're just going to say, we're done. We're going on strike.
Right, which is definitely possible. I think it's good that they're getting back pay to 2020. It's probably still not enough. Honestly, we're now at a place where wages are so low, so depressed that now we get these like 14% raises, and it sounds like this big deal, but really it's just taking you back to where you maybe, not definitely, maybe should have been if your wages had kept pace with productivity and inflation, right? So it's really not a big deal. Like it might make more sense if their raises were 30%. It's the same thing with minimum wage. This whole idea of fighting for 15 doesn't make any sense to me. 15 is not good enough. Wages, minimum wage should be at least $25 an hour.
Yeah, well, the fight for 15 is now just kind of purely symbolic because when it started, 15 was a reasonable hourly wage, but now it's not anymore, I mean, because that fight's been going on for over a decade. And so, I mean, yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, the last time, I think the Bush administration was the last time there was a raise in the minimum wage. We've seen these things erode just in like recent history. Like, I mean, this isn't an example of rail, but it's kind of the same thing. I mean, another industry that has like merged and is completely deregulated and doesn't protect workers at all is the airline industry. And then they get a blank check from Wall Street whenever they want one. And so
yeah.
I've traveled a lot in my life, like being a comedian and whatnot. And I can tell you that like in my lifetime, within the past like 10 years ish, I mean, it used to be that like being a flight attendant was a pretty fun gig. You got cool travel perks and like it'd be overnight here and there. And that was part of the gig and you liked it and it was fun. I mean, now in more recent times, like you notice a difference in the demeanor of a lot of people on these flights. Now, of course, there's, like the pandemic and stuff like that also has a lot to do with that. But part of it is like people are so ridiculously overworked. Right. They're not paid for it. They're not offered anything resembling a work-life balance. And how frightening is it that we have these overworked and very tired people operating planes and trains?
Yes, it's dangerous. That's the other part.
They're operating planes and trains, and let's not forget frickin' buses. They're driving buses too. Oh, and guess what? They're driving cars because you think, people in the gig economy and Uber and Lyft, they're exploiting drivers too out the wazoo. And here in California, we couldn't pass policy to make that any better. Over in the UK, we made it worse. Over in the UK, they didn't fall for that dirty trick, but we fell for it here in the States. And in California, no less, by the way, the so-called progressive utopia of California. So, I mean, it's just something's got to give.
Something's got to give. This country's ready to explode between the right-wing extremists and people not making enough money to get by, pay rent, and, bad union contracts, no union contracts. The country's ready to explode. That's basically where we're at. And apparently the people in Congress don't see it for what it is. They're just turning a blind eye.
I think Biden especially. I mean, it's like, I think he still thinks it's like 1976 where it's like, yeah, the guys at Amtrak, they like me. High five. We're not going to have a strike. I mean, these people are, I think some of it is willful ignorance. But I think a lot of it is just total cluelessness.
100%.
They don't realize how bad it is right now.
No. And in fact, we have a clip with Biden and some news guys talking. Let's go ahead and play that, Colin, and we'll get a reaction to that from you.
So this averted a nationwide rail strike that could have been disastrous for the economy.
The White House brokered the marathon talks between the two sides and announced the tentative deal in the early hours this morning. CNN's MJ Lee is at the White House. So the president is said to have been instrumental in getting this deal finalized. At what point did he come in and what did he do?
Yeah, it is really difficult to overstate how important it was for both this president and this White House to avert this rail strike. And in the past few days, we really saw every part of the negotiations intensify. And that included, as you noted, President Biden himself getting involved in recent days, really picking up the phone himself and calling some of these key negotiators.
Do you get political credit for averting a crisis that nobody knew was a crisis at all? I mean, this is great that we didn't have a rail strike, but nobody felt the fear of a rail strike because it was averted.
Folks were beginning to, but you make an important point. A lot of the presidency is actually the things that don't happen on your watch because of the actions you take sometimes behind the scenes. And I think it's particularly true of Biden. This strike, which was looming, could have been disastrous, deepening stagflation, having impacts on inflation, supply chain, would have been such a slap in the face to Amtrak Joe. But what Biden did behind the scenes, and you see this consistently, is he's working the phones. He's calling the players. He's not inserting himself in the center of the crisis.
Guys, let's all just move somewhere. What if we all just let's pool our resources and go somewhere? Jesus, I'm what a time. What a time.
Can we start with the fact that they're literally saying no one knew there was a crisis brewing? And my response to that as a journalist is, are you fucking kidding me? That's because you're not doing your jobs.
Yeah, because you're in your ivory tower.
It's been on the wall. They tried to strike last February. How can you guys get up there and say no one knew there was a crisis? Does he get credit for that? No, there has been a crisis brewing, and I'm not sure we're past it.
Of course we're not. I mean, all those people, I was just watching them, and I'll be like, wow, where is the fucking ventriloquist? You puppet. No. Holy cow. That was amazing. I mean, this is news in the United States. We have no room to criticize any other country when it comes to propagandizing your own people. We have no room to criticize anybody else. We have to be, when it comes to war, we are definitely the most propagandized nation on earth by far. When it comes to everything else, I mean, I don't know. I don't. Maybe there's another country out there that beats us. I haven't been to it yet. I can tell you that much. I haven't frickin' seen it. Holy shit! I mean, they're living in Wonderland.
They are living in Wonderland.
I mean, how do you talk with a boot in your mouth? I'll give it to them. They can multitask. They can lick a boot and talk at the same time. That's mildly impressive, I guess. Wow.
Rod, I'm just blown away that they were basically like, wait, there was no crisis. How did we not know there was a crisis? Like, maybe do your jobs, guys. You should have known there was a crisis brewing. You should have been reporting on it all along. Did you totally ignore what happened last February when a judge put a kibbutz on the strike because he said it was a minor dispute when it really wasn't minor? I mean, there was no way we weren't going to end up in this place. And quite frankly, why did
they talk to a worker, by the way?
As CNN is always like pro economy and keeping the economy going, they should have been discussing this, because even 1 week of striking from railway workers would have completely decimated the supply chain in a way that we have not seen yet. These empty shelves that we sort of saw in the past because of some COVID problems, minor, nothing would top what 1 week of the trains not running would do. That's just a straightforward fact. Anyway, I watched this stuff and I'm like, I just can't believe
they're living in La La Land. I mean, it is like the opposite of what is going on. And then unless you are seeking out independent sources like this that talks to work, I mean, heaven forbid they talk to a worker at CNN. I don't know I don't think that's ever happened. I don't think they would know.
Why wouldn't they go out and talk to them?
They wouldn't know what to say, because they wouldn't know how to talk to a regular person. They'd be like, so what is it like being like a worker person that does? I watched Thomas the Tank Engine when I was a kid. That's my only point of reference to anyone who works. It's nuts. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. They are out of touch elites to the nth degree. And wow, I mean, when you watch stuff like that, there's no reason. I mean, cable news, the way cable news works in this country, it shouldn't be legal. In other countries, it would be illegal. In Norway, our news would be illegal, because of the way we have advertising on news. It would literally be illegal. They don't allow that there. If you are a news outlet,
because it's about public service, right? This is the point is you're supposed to be educating the population on what's happening. And how can you do an entire segment on railway workers striking and not speak to a railway worker? How is that even a thing? Well, it's a thing. We just saw it. So, and there was more to that video, believe it or not. It's just absolutely insane that is where we are.
I think we got the theme.
We got the theme right. So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was pretty crazy that and this is the normal behavior, right, that we see from them.
Well, let's before we switch to another story, let's take a quick moment to give a very special thank you. We'll get to all the super chats here in a minute, and thank you all so very much. But we'll give a special shout out to Humorous right now, who was once again incredibly generous. Thank you so much, Humorous. That is very amazing of you. And you say, the greatest union ever created on earth, the American people. Every single one of us should be behind these people trying to unionize. Only the old folks like me remember when unions were strong. People weren't treated like this. This stuff that Status Coup talks about is wrong, folks. It has to stop now, not tomorrow. Amen to that. And thank you so much for your generosity, Humorous. You help keep shows like this going, which by the way, please do consider becoming a member here at Status Coup. And I think that, you know, today's show is kind of a testament. When you're a member at Status Coup, first of all, you get a members call that's happening today at 7 p.m. Eastern, and you get other perks like that. But also, you're funding journalism. You're funding firsthand journalism, where we're not just going to repeat press releases from any administration. People are actually going to go, and they're going to go to places like Mississippi, and they're going to talk to people like railroad workers, and they're going to go to places like Flint. That's what goes on at a network like this, and that helps us present these stories to you and give you a perspective of what is actually going on. So thank you very much for your continued support.
You need to make Humorous a producer of the show. He's like so generous. It's amazing. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We do. All right. So I wanted to bring another thing to your attention, because it's just absolutely frightful that this happened. There was a taped conversation with Brian Kemp where he's basically discussing the possibility of, wait for it, outlawing contraception now. So let us play that clip, Colin, please. It's the Heartland signal.
I gotta ask, in my Constitution class, we're talking about how like the Dobbs decision went back to the states. During that, can you like ban Plan B in that process since everything's now at the state level? Because I mean, now
well, you can take up pretty much everything, but you got to be in legislative session to do that.
Is that something
January?
Is that something you could do? I mean, obviously after you win and everything.
Just depends on where the legislators are.
But if they're on board, we can do that. Because I mean, look,
I think I'd have to check and see. I mean, there's a lot of legalities with all that.
But I mean, it's just like we got abortion. Like it was so great because Roe v. Wade was overturned, and now we have all these problems. You know, where
well, the thing was,
and then we have states like Colorado.
It's allowing other states; they can still do whatever they want.
I mean,
unfortunately. Well, that's just the way the Constitution is.
Yeah,
the fight continues.
I appreciate it.
The other side writes like it's all gone and they're scared.
Yeah, fear tactics. You know. Thank you.
So Ron, I want your take on
that. That's a real person. That's a real college kid who that's what's on his mind. That's what he's concerned about. That hey, can we stop people from getting Plan B? How is that any of your business? Who cares? Like I can't.
I don't know that he was being sincere about wanting to do that. I think he was trying to see what Brian Kemp's take was. Can we do this? I'm frightened that Brian Kemp doesn't seem to have a problem with doing that. So his responses are pretty much, if the legislation body's in session, well, if we can get around that. If he was really concerned about not having Plan B become illegal, he would have shut that conversation down. He's clearly entertaining the idea.
Of course he is. I mean, they want to, I mean, well, wasn't it recent that there was that other thing that they were going to try to block, like they were allowing people to block like HIV treatments on religious grounds? Which
they were.
I mean,
these are preventative.
I don't know how you get to that, but okay. I mean, wow. Like, I just don't understand.
Really Here's the thing with PrEP, and we should talk about that for a second, because this isn't only used by homosexuals; it's used by heterosexuals as well. This prevents HIV transmission. And it is and it's something we should 100% be funding to the teeth. It is more expensive, even if the moral grounds don't suit you, they're enough for me. But if you're one of these people that like, let's do the economically cheaper thing, PrEP is cheaper because you're preventing somebody from getting HIV and then getting on these very expensive cocktails for the rest of their lives. Like the fact that they're doing this is because in the same way with contraception, right, with Plan B, this is what they're framing as moral just desserts, right? So because of their religious beliefs, they're making a decision about what is right or wrong, what's sin, based on their moral religious beliefs. And they're basically saying, you sinned, you deserve that outcome. It's absolutely asinine and insane that these folks are entering positions of government.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I just don't have any patience for this stuff anymore. Like this is not a difference of opinion. This is not like these are people imposing their views, and these are just your views. Like these aren't, and this isn't like, oh, I have a different strategy idea. This is more like, no, this is how I think you have to live your life. You have to live your life this way. I read this archaic book that was written thousands and thousands of years ago, was passed down who knows how many times, interpreted with people who knows what agenda, and I've interpreted it with the comprehension skills of a 6-year-old, and I have come to this conclusion that sex is wrong, and that's so I could just live my life and choose not to have it. I could do that, but that's fine. That's your choice. You want to not have sex, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out with all that. Have fun. I mean, this was some college. Have fun in your dorm room. Whatever. Live your life. That's not my place to judge anyone else. But instead, you're going to tell everyone else, this is how you have to live. You have to live this way so that you're not entitled to this medication or this preventative measure. Or if something happens, you have to bring this child to term. Because these are my archaic beliefs, but you have to live under my archaic beliefs. So, this is... We are a fascist theocracy. That is an accurate description of the United States. I think pretending we're anything but is delusional at this point. But, I mean, they're not even trying to be subtle about it anymore. It's like, you thought we evolved from this stuff in, 2004. We haven't. We haven't.
It's gotten worse.
Still, it's got, well, yeah, I think in some ways it's gotten like a little bit better, but we took one step forward and then like 5 steps back. So like in many ways, yeah, it is worse. And it's just, it's pretty, I don't know. I mean, when you hear stuff like this, you just feel so completely deflated because you just think, wow, there really are so many people in this country.
It's really having this conversation. Like, it's not, I mean, the fact that he didn't shut it down means he's entertaining the idea that, like, yeah, sure, why not? That sounds like a reasonable thing to do. No, Brian Kemp, it's not. This should scare the shit out of every woman on the planet, quite frankly. And
it's
men
just,
too.
Yeah, I mean, every person, really. I mean, because it's just, I mean, it's extreme. And it's like, you know, I mean, obviously not all people of faith are like that. I'm not trying to overgeneralize, but it is a very concerning thing. You know, freedom of religion means you're free to practice whatever you want.
Religion,
yeah,
yes.
And freedom from religion. You can practice whatever you want and live however you want, as long as you're not hurting other people. And imposing your will on other people is hurting other people. So guess what? That's not freedom of religion. That's theocracy. And that's
It's
what we
theocracy. For some reason, these folks can't figure that out. This country wasn't set up as a theocracy. It was set up with religious freedom, which means everybody gets to practice their religion or no religion. And the only way to ensure that that happens is when no religion is prefaced over another. You have to have secular ethics.
Mm.
It's just that simple. Anyway, before I digress into a philosophy conversation, you had a few things I know that you wanted to bring up and discuss on antitrust, on updates.
Of course.
And you had another article you wanted to share on same-sex marriage, I believe it was.
Yeah, why don't we go there first, and then we'll do a brief update on antitrust. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward here. Basically, the Senate is going to hold up. Colin, can you bring that up? The Senate delays same-sex marriage vote until after midterms. The decision comes as bipartisan negotiators hope for a vote soon as Monday, but face trouble lining up 10 Republicans to break a filibuster. So basically, there was a piece of policy out there to solidify same-sex marriage. They're trying to pass same-sex marriage protection legislation. They're going to wait until after the election to do that. And I just thought it would be interesting to have a brief conversation. Why do you think that is? I mean, personally, I think it's for two reasons. One, I think it's because they don't really care about actually passing this and protecting same-sex marriage. And two, they want to kind of dangle it as a carrot for people during the midterms. They want to dangle that carrot being like, okay, if you don't give us the majority, we're not, even though we can't pass it now, apparently we can't even pass it now, and we have the majority. If you don't let us keep the majority and get us more people, you're going to lose this. So
right.
I think that's
they're definitely not going to have 10 more Democrats after the midterm. That's absolutely the case. They might even lose seats at this point. So who knows where that's going? There's only one way to do this, and that's to get rid of the filibuster. I don't understand why the Democratic Party, which they won't do, which is absolutely asinine to me. They should do it.
They don't really care about winning. They don't really care. I mean, it's like they don't. I mean, it's like that Onion headline was the most accurate thing, where they're just like, Biden's worried his agenda might not get through because he doesn't really care. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They don't actually want any type of meaningful policy to pass. They don't care. What they care about is retaining the gravy train. If they can beat a couple Republicans in the process, great. If we can dangle some carrots so it's not a bloodbath in the midterms, great. But if we can't and it's a bloodbath anyway, oh well, bedelba. That's why we're not going to fight while we do have the majority. And it's just been the playbook for frickin' years, because when you're caught in a volley between neoliberalism and neo-fascism, the volley's just gonna keep going back and forth, and we're the ping pong ball being shifted on the other end. And guess what, folks? No one wants to actually lose the volley. No one's trying to get it past the other person. They just like this little gravy train.
Right. Well, that's exactly right. So they could have codified Roe v. Wade long before we're facing what we're facing right now. Obama, in fact, campaigned on doing exactly that. Then he decided it wasn't important enough to do for reasons I will never understand. I think part of the problem was they didn't actually see this day coming. Now this day is here. And I think Clarence Thomas has made quite clear that he is coming for other things based on the same sort of privacy issues that he went after in Roe v. Wade. So this could be same-sex marriage. It could be civil rights laws. Those things all have the potential to get gutted at this point. So it does make sense to me that they would be using this as a carrot, like you just mentioned. So if you don't vote for Democrats in the midterms, they're going to come for this too, and you better vote for us because we're going to preserve it. My worry at this point, though, is as with so many things that the Democrats have played this game with, right? Vote for me and I'm going to do this, and then they don't deliver the goods. So because of that, we're now at a time frame where a lot of people just simply don't trust Democratic Party leadership. They don't believe them when they make these claims because they've heard it before in the past and action was not delivered upon. Repeatedly. We're not talking about once or twice. We're talking repeatedly. There's a whole history of this. We're talking decades. So it just doesn't work anymore. Like you cannot keep telling people you're going to do something and then never deliver on those goods time and time again for decades and expect everybody to be like, yeah, vote blue no matter who. There are those people that exist.
It's
but
working the way
it's working the way of their electorate.
It's working the way they want it to. It's working the way they want it to.
I understand that. So
because
but
there's
it's going to blow up in their face, Ron. It's going to blow up in their faces.
When is that going to happen? I mean, I don't think that will ever happen.
You don't think it's happening now?
And they don't care. I mean,
well, I'm not saying they care. I agree with you there.
I mean, they don't. I mean, whenever people I understand that some people do think that they're genuinely concerned with winning, and I mean that sounds to me kind of like a fairy tale. What really is going on is you only have two choices. We live in the United States of amnesia. Right. So of course it's going to work every now and again. You're going to just forget. And then people are just going to be like, well, it's either a Republican or this. So I guess I'm going to, and it's the cycle repeats and repeats and repeats and nothing really changes. This is why we need to not have a duopoly. This is why we need to change the way the rules work and to have a more multi-party system like other democratic experiments that, while they're far from perfect, they work a hell of a lot better than ours does. And I'm talking Canada, I'm talking England. Even England is way better off than we are. Even England, and then the Tories are freaking nuts, but even England has it way freaking better than we do. Pretty much anywhere in the EU, not saying these places are perfect, they're not. But because they have a more parliamentary style system, you need to get the communists, the socialists, the anarchists, the labor. You need to get them all on board if you want policy through. So the right wing is not as far right.
Yeah. When you form a coalition government with multiple parties, you get more say and you also get more checks and balances between what people want. It is a better form of democracy, in my opinion. I agree with you.
Way, way better. I mean, and ours is set up this way by design. It's not because we think like this is the way to be. And when people make these ridiculous arguments like, well, the forefathers had it set up for two parties. First of all, that's actually not true. The quote unquote forefathers had it set up for no parties whatsoever. So that's not even true right there. Second of all, even if it was, I know that it's a crazy notion that a bunch of 20-somethings who had slaves, probably multiple STDs, and solved their problems by walking 15 paces and shooting at each other, didn't walk on water and weren't all-knowing. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they weren't. Some of them were like as young as teens and shit. So maybe, just maybe, we should frickin' evolve. And guess what? They made it an evolving document anyway.
Yes.
So,
we should evolve from a representative democracy to direct democracy. I feel very strongly about that. We should take steps toward that. And I'm glad to see ranked choice voting is getting taking a foothold in many places now, which is good. That's a step in the right direction. Will it happen fast enough? I don't know, but something's got to change here. And the filibuster has got to end. The fact the Democratic Party keeps playing this game is beyond the pale to me. It is the only thing stopping them from really achieving some of the goals that they say they want to attain.
So
let's give folks a call to action to kind of end on something uplifting here. So you guys know I've been pushing antitrust legislation, and last week on the show, Colin, if you could pull up the U.S. News article regarding iRobot, I'll do a quick follow up here. Last week on the show, we talked about Amazon's most dangerous merger yet, where they're getting into iRobot and they're getting into One Medical. So Jeff Bezos, the ever-knowing sweet guy that he is, that allows his employee to pee in bottles and allows warehouse conditions so bad 3 people died in July. He is now going to be involved with healthcare. And he just purchased One Robot too, which makes the cameras that are in your frickin' Roomba. So now he's surveying your house, and he already harvests your data. A group of organizations, including the digital rights group Fight for the Future, and including a couple labor groups. I know some of the Teamsters are involved, and some other pro-privacy and digital rights groups too. Public Citizen is among them. They sent a letter to the FTC urging the FTC to act on this, because we do have supposed, enforcers of this stuff in this country. But whether it be MGM or HBO or Amazon, they always seem to be asleep at the wheel. So fortunately, some of these organizations are stepping up. And which brings us to the next piece of antitrust legislation, which you guys know I've been pushing for, the antitrust legislation that breaks up big tech. It would be the most significant antitrust legislation we've seen in 40 years. Amy Klobuchar recently said that her bill is not dead, which is not super reassuring. That's like talking to a guy who runs like a rotary phone store. Like, hey, Dave, how's the rotary phone store going? It's not dead yet. There's still a few people who use this stuff. I sold an answering machine 3 months ago. I'm still hanging in. Man, we got to have an intervention for Dave. I don't think this. So it's not super reassuring, but a vote has been promised. And so we got to just be so loud that they can't ignore it, because they're going to need every win going in the midterms that they can get if they don't want to get wiped out.
This would definitely help. I mean,
this would help them, and honestly, it would help people across because like this does have a lot of bipartisan support, like a lot of,
it should.
The
DOJ hasn't enforced antitrust laws in decades. It's absolutely ridiculous. And in fact, I personally believe that is one of the root causes of the income inequality that we have in this country, because the consolidation of all of these businesses into a handful of multinational powerful companies is what's enabling them to keep their thumb on top of wages. This is a direct effect of that, in my opinion.
All of these things are connected. Digital rights, labor rights, there are all kinds of connection here. And yeah, it's really apparent. So please, folks, the website has been updated because the ask has gotten more kind of urgent. So it is urgent now. Go to antitrustvotenow.com. That's antitrustvotenow.com. As the ticker says there, it's been 119 days since Chuck Schumer promised a vote. And I've been part of this campaign for, I think, pretty much the whole time. Since June, we've been pushing over at Fight for the Future and elsewhere. We've been pushing for this legislation. Chuck Schumer promised a vote in June. That he promised a vote before the August recess. Now he promised a vote before the fall's over. So we're still pleading for this vote. Chuck Schumer, of course, has a daughter who works for Amazon, and big tech has spent over $95 million trying to crush this legislation. And that, of course, includes Amazon, Facebook, the normal key players. So please, antitrustvotenow.com. Please sign. It takes less than 40 seconds. And if you signed Antitrust Summer, sign again, because this is a more urgent ask. So sign again. So this is a fresh ask. Antitrustvotenow.com. Antitrustvotenow.com.
So Amy Klobuchar is the main sponsor of that?
Amy Klobuchar and Chuck Grassley wrote bills. Yeah. So I mean, it's written by a Democrat and a Republican, and there are people across party lines that support this, because I think everyone realizes big tech just has way too much power. These practices are totally monopolistic, and we got to start breaking it up. You know, I mean, will this legislation solve all the problems? Of course
No.
not. This is a hell of a first step. So please, antitrustvotenow.com.
Absolutely. All right, it's time to read some super chats. Ron, why don't you start with the top of those?
All right. So, well, Venetia, we read Venetia's, but we'll read it again. Ready to get my news on with Ron and Tina. Thank you so much, Venetia. And what's up in the UK? Hope you're well. Can't wait to see you when I'm on the road there. Humorous. You've been so generous today. Here's the Status Coup news. They're awesome journalism and commentaries. And thank you, Tina and Ron, for helping out Jordan. Thank you so much, Humorous. Thank you for being so generous. You help make what we do possible. Kayfabe Garrett, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hope you are well. Humorous. Good and evil is a choice. It is not a fact of the universe. Anyone who thinks what is going on in America and around the world is good, then I guess we all chose to be evil. Man, a little philosophical thought drop there. I love it. I love it. I mean, that's one of the a very dominant, incredible philosophical discussion. Like, what is good? What is evil?
Is it inherent? Yeah.
Talked about that before, didn't we?
We did.
had a good evil, and I think I think most people, and I think you and I are among them, like, there is a line between good and evil. I do believe that. And where the discussion is like, well, how much does environment play a role?
Right.
You know, can people change? And I believe that they can. I don't believe anyone.
Yeah, you're not born evil, or
you're not born good or evil. You're really not. But like, environment plays a role.
100%.
But I think there is still a certain amount of just your like just kind of the choices you make that do play a role. I mean, you see people that they're handed every horrible circumstance in the book and they still overcome it, or if they fall down, they kind of climb out of it. And then you see other people who had
a soft determinist.
Huh?
I said that's sort of why I'm a soft determinist.
No. I hear what you're saying.
That's definitely a discussion for another day, though. I love that Fiona just said evil is fun.
We can't get into that too much. Yeah, we can't get into that too much, or we could go on all day. But thank you very much, Hubris. Hubris goes on. We only had 2 jobs as human beings: take care of each other, take care of this garden that we live on, and it will take care of us. Holy crap, did we fail at that? No shit. I mean,
Seriously.
really, at the end of the day, that's all. It's like, just be stewards to the earth and be good to each other, and everyone can just live a fine life. I mean, there's more. The earth can provide enough bounty for frickin' all of us, but instead we decided to destroy it. And wow, yeah, that's great. That's why, I mean, you know, that's why in many ways, if someone had to be like, choose one thing to like define you just politically, I would say eco-socialist, because it's like, we need to just create a society that looks out for human needs first and foremost, not profit, human frickin' needs, and is stewards to the earth. And by the way, we can do this many times over. We have the ability to do this. We're not going to have to live like Amish people to do it. We have solutions. They're out there. We could still have amazing quality lives. We could still go and see the world. We just don't have the will. Like, we just don't have the will. And the people with all the power aren't letting that will be basically be realized. So, yeah, anyway. Humorous, this is the very, very generous contribution. We'll go ahead and read it again. And thank you so much for this. The greatest union ever created on earth, the American people. Every single one of us should be behind these people trying to unionize. Amen. Only the old folks like me remember when unions were strong. People were treated like this. The stuff that SC talks about is wrong, folks. It has to stop now, not tomorrow. Amen, Humorous. You are 100% right. Thank you again so much for your generosity. And I don't know how old you are, but I will say this to you, because this is how I think of aging too. My good buddy Tim Carroll says it best. You can't stay young, but you can stay cool.
That is true.
Right. And then Kayfabe Garrett, YouTube member for 15 months. Humorous. Thank you very much, Catfaye. Excuse me. Thank you very much for your contribution and your generosity. Joe, what's up, Joe? Hope you are well. Would love for you to cover more disabilities-related stories. Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's definitely a way people can submit stuff to Status Coup. And
it's an area that is very much sorely undercovered in journalism. I 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joe, thank you for that. And, I think all the folks who are involved.
I will make an effort in looking for those stories. 100%.
We all do the absolute best that, we can with stuff. I mean, there's just so much out there that, demands a lot of attention. And I think everyone's just doing the best they can. But info@statuscoup.com. Right, Colin? That was the email that you just brought up there. Yeah. info@statuscoup.com. There's
Correct,
Colin.
Yeah. If you have any stories, info@statuscoup.com.
Party. There we go. Colin on the 1s, 2s, and 3s. We just moved them over to 3s too.
Reminder, we do have two things. We do have a members call tonight at 7:00 Eastern. Put that up on the screen. So members, anybody that's a member can join Jordan tonight for a member call. This is a great opportunity to have a direct conversation with the people at Status Coup and
and if you're a member on Patreon or either the old website at statuscoup.com or a member on the new member site, statuscoupmember.com, you just wait and you'll get an email at about 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with a link to the Zoom call. And then you just click that to join. If you have any issues or don't receive the email for some reason, just email that same info@statuscoup.com with any issues. But yeah, unfortunately, it does not include YouTube members, as YouTube does not give us your emails to send that link. So, but everyone else, you will get that link as long as you join before 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Perfect. All right. So coming up, it is going to be time for Right Wing Insanity Report with yours truly. So I hope you guys stay tuned in for that. We're going to play it immediately after. Just also for some housekeeping, because we pre-record this. Just because there's only one Colin and there's like multiples of us, and it was the only way to make this work out with his schedule. So we're going to be playing that. If you do any super chats, what I've decided to do, that's the easiest way, instead of like sort of trying to address them in the chat while it's playing, I'm going to address it on next week's show. So I will take note of any of your questions, any of those sorts of things. And at the start of the following show, I will address them there. I think that's the best way to go about it. This week on the show, I am looking at QAnon. The reason being is we've had 3 stories this week that were pretty big relating to right-wing extremism, QAnon violence. One of them you might not even realize is QAnon related. So I'm going to sign off with Ron here today. Thanks for joining us for our Thursday News for the Day live stream. And coming up is the Right Wing Insanity Report.
Thanks, y'all. Peace. Antitrustvotenow.com.
I'm Tina-Desiree Berg, and welcome to this week's Right Wing Insanity Report. This week, we're going to focus a little bit on QAnon and the followers of this movement, because the headlines this week have all been about radicalized QAnon followers. But before we get into those stories, let's talk a little bit about who QAnon is and where they come from. Basically, it's conspiracy theory driven. It started on 4chan in around 2017. It moved to 8chan after the Q folks, or folk, we don't know exactly who Q is, decided that 4chan was infiltrated. Basically, the premise for most of their conspiracy theories is that there's a global group of Satanists that are pedophiles, that are cannibals. They're running the world. There's some anti-Semitism thrown in there. But clearly, these are folks that are kind of subject to believing into conspiracy theories. So some of them have now also morphed into believing the earth is flat and proving that. So a host of conspiracy theories going on there. There's also some religious elements and elements of Christian fascism. The one that put them on the map was the Pizzagate scandal. This is the one that was birthed from the Podesta emails that basically said that Clinton and other elitist Democrats were running a pedophile ring out of a pizzeria in downtown Washington, D.C. So long history of different conspiracy theories. The folks that obviously believe this stuff are motivated by them because they're now out there in the real world acting upon these beliefs, and we're going to get into that. I wanted to start, though, by playing a clip from Christopher Wray, the FBI director in 2020, discussing exactly what QAnon is to the Congress. Let's play that.
How do you assess that organization as it relates to violent acts?
So we view QAnon as essentially less of an organization and more of a sort of a complex set of conspiracy theories. And certainly we have had cases that properly predicated cases involving violence where people have been motivated by some of those conspiracy theories. But as you said, we don't investigate the ideology or the conspiracy theory itself. I don't think we've seen lethal attacks involving that kind of motivation, but we have certainly.
So your investigations would be driven based upon any violent acts?
Correct. Violent. We no matter what ideology or belief it is of domestic violent extremism, we look at three things: one, violence or a threat of violence; two, a federal crime, obviously; and then third, the motivation.
So Q's first drop, they call them Q drops, on 4chan was basically the calm before the storm. The calm before the storm, and now they have morphed into saying basically that the storm is coming. So when you see the storm is coming, as you have seen this past week with Donald Trump on Truth Social posting that, it's a QAnon reference. So somewhere along the line in 2021, the FBI actually decided that this idea that they could do violence in the real world was a thing. So let's go ahead and pull up this article from June 14th, 2021. This was in CNN. First on CNN, FBI warns lawmakers that QAnon digital soldiers may become more violent. So up until this point, it was just sort of this online conspiracy theory movement. But the FBI warned lawmakers that online QAnon conspiracy theorists may carry out more acts of violence as they move from serving as digital soldiers to taking action in the real world following the January 6th U.S. Capitol attack. The shift is fueled by a belief among some of the conspiracy's more militant followers that they can no longer trust the plan set forth by its mysterious standard bearer, known simply as Q, according to an unclassified FBI threat assessment on QAnon sent to lawmakers last week, which was obtained by CNN. But the report suggests the failure of QAnon predictions to materialize has not led to followers abandoning the conspiracy. Instead, there's a belief that individuals need to take greater control of the direction of the movement than before. This might lead followers to seek to harm perceived members of the cabal, such as Democrats and other political opposition, instead of continually awaiting Q's promised actions, which have not occurred, according to the assessment. Other QAnon adherents likely will disengage from the movement or reduce their involvement in the wake of the administration change. Well, I think what basically happened here is this was correct. Their conspiracy theories weren't coming true, so that's a group of the more radicalized ones have now in turn become more violent in the real world. So that moves me to what happened this week. We had a Q dad, right? He's being called a Q dad. This was a QAnon conspiracy theorist who basically brought a gun in, shot his wife, shot one of his kids. And this first came to light when one of the children made a post on Reddit. Let's pull that up and we can read it. So this was the post that was on Reddit. Yep, the internet ruined him. Growing up, my parents were extremely loving and happy people. I always had a special bond with both my parents. In 2020, after Trump lost, my dad started going down the Q rabbit hole. He kept reading conspiracy theories about the stolen election, Trump, vaccines, etc. He always said that he wanted to keep us safe and healthy. It kept getting worse, and he verbally snapped at us a few times. Nothing physical, though. He never got physical with anybody. Well, at around 4 a.m. on September 11th, he had an argument with my mother, and he decided to take our guns and shoot her, my dog, and my sister. My mother succumbed to her wounds, and my sister is in the hospital right now. My dad also fired back at the cops, and they killed him. I'm shocked, and I don't even know what to say. Fuck you, QAnon. I hope the FBI tightens its grip on you, and that your lackeys rot in prison and hell for poisoning so many people. So this is really tragic, right? So this is a story of a guy that got sucked down the rabbit hole and decided to take out those frustrations and his angers at his family. But what if I told you this isn't the first time this has happened? There was another story that happened here in California a year prior, where a father from Santa Barbara took his two young children down into Baja California and shot them with a spear fishing. So let's pull up this article. California man charged with killing his children. Claimed he was enlightened by QAnon, the FBI says. Matthew Taylor Coleman, a surfing school owner, said he believed children had serpent DNA, according to FBI. Serpent DNA. So, part of a lot of these conspiracy theories are that Jewish people are satanic. His wife is believed to be partially Jewish, and that might have been what he was getting at. Or the other theory, what he meant by that is that they're lizard people. I know that sounds crazy, but lizard people has been something that's been in the conscience of conspiracy theorists for decades, and that includes the QAnon folks. All right, so let's go through a little bit of this article to get the facts down. A California surfing school owner has been charged with killing his 2 young children after driving them from their home in Santa Barbara to Mexico. During an interview with the FBI, Matthew Taylor Coleman confessed that he had taken his 2-year-old son and 10-month-old daughter to Rosarita, Mexico, where he shot a spearfishing gun into their chests, according to an affidavit filed by FBI agent with the criminal complaint. The 40-year-old said that he was enlightened by QAnon and Illuminati conspiracy theories, according to the affidavit, and that he believed his children were going to grow into monsters, so he had to kill them. Coleman was charged with the foreign murder of U.S. nationals, the U.S. Attorney's Office said in a statement. The office said a judge had scheduled an arraignment for 31st of August. It was not immediately clear whether Coleman had an attorney to speak for him. QAnon is a wide-ranging internet conspiracy theory whose adherents believe that a secret cabal of Democrats, celebrities, and billionaires is controlling the world while also engaging in child sex trafficking. The potent blend of classic anti-Semitic tropes and contemporary right-wing politics was supercharged by the coronavirus pandemic in 2020, when it merged with other conspiracy communities, including anti-vaccine and anti-lockdown groups, and the proponents of false allegations of election fraud in the 2020 presidential race. QAnon has repeatedly been linked to both political and interpersonal violence, including several cases of parents allegedly kidnapping their children. But much about the tragedy that befell the Coleman family remained unclear. A farm worker found the children's bodies on Monday at a ranch near the resort town of Rosarita in Baja California, about 40 minutes from the U.S. border, Mexican authorities have said. Coleman and the children had checked into a Rosarita Beach hotel on Saturday, according to authorities there, but video footage showed them leaving before dawn on Monday. Coleman returned alone later that morning and then left the hotel for good, they added. Coleman's wife had reported to Santa Barbara police on Saturday that her husband had left with the children in the family's van. The family was supposed to go on a camping trip, she told the police, but Coleman instead took the children and left without saying where he was going. All right, so this is just a tragic story. Basically, he decided his children had DNA from, some serpent thing, and that they needed to be killed because they were going to grow up into monsters. I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but this is what's happening. This is what happens when you mix all of these conspiracies together and people get trapped into these Telegram chat rooms and other chat rooms on 4chan and 8chan, and they become more and more radicalized because they're only hearing more extreme versions of these stories, and they're already believing the less extreme ones, and so now they get ratcheted up to the next level of extreme belief. So now in the wake of this, we've had 2 families that have had mass murders inside of them due to being motivated by these conspiracy theories. So it's a very serious movement that we really need to look at as a nation. Part of it is lack of mental health care coverage. I think these folks obviously are having mental health crises. We have to look at this, I think, as in terms of people being part of a cult that need an intervention of some sort. I don't know what that looks like, but if we don't do anything about this, it's just going to get worse, in my opinion. So this week, we also saw the Queen of England passing away. And of course, that just lit QAnon on fire. We've seen various conspiracy theories surrounding that, from the Queen was already dead, and this was just like a body double, to Princess Diana is actually still alive, to all kinds of crazy King Charles conspiracies. So let's get into a little bit of that story, because it's sort of also emblematic of where these different beliefs go wrong and awry and get to extreme points. So let's pull up this article on the Queen. QAnon is losing it over Queen Elizabeth's death. This was in Vice magazine this week. Now, mind you, there are legitimate beefs to have with Queen Elizabeth. She did head up a colonial empire. I know some folks are saying that she was taking colonialism down. I don't think that's entirely true. She certainly, in the early years of her reign, oversaw some terrible atrocities related to colonialism. So there are reasons we can also just criticize the idea of still having a monarchy in this day and age. But these guys aren't doing that. They're insisting that Queen Elizabeth is part of the cabal, right? She's part of the satanic cabal that is running a sex trafficking ring, and like all things, there's sometimes some truth in things. You have the whole situation with Prince Charles and Jeffrey Epstein, which is a valid beef. The fact that he is trying to, go after a 12-year-old girl, that has been substantiated. That's bad look, right? So like a lot of times with these conspiracy theories, there'll be some grain of truth in there and it just blows up into something other than that. All right. So despite spending years claiming she'd already been executed, QAnon on Thursday openly celebrated the news of Queen Elizabeth's death. May she burn in hell for eternity, one QAnon account on Telegram wrote moments after the Queen's death was announced. So happy the evil witch is dead, wrote another. For years, the Queen has been a central figure in the QAnon conspiracy as part of a cast of elites whose followers believe they are operating a child sex trafficking ring that transverses the globe. In the hours before her death, some referenced wild QAnon conspiracies about the Queen participating in satanic rituals and drinking the blood of children. They're preparing the Black Mass and baby buffet as we sit here, adding, I think you'll find she's already gone. Another echoed the sentiment that the Queen has been dead for a while. She's been dead. They had to find the right time to break the news. On the Great Awakening, a QAnon message board, this is on Telegram, users shared similar conspiracies. She died several months ago. Remember that she went through a transition or whatever? That was the embalming process. CGI and body doubles are in place. Others pushed the even more fantastical claim that the Queen was merely a computer-generated mirage, a conspiracy that QAnon has also pushed about President Joe Biden since he took office last year. She has been CGI for a while now. Wonder why it's being announced now, one Telegram user wrote. Over a QAnon message board, one user wrote about a picture released last week of the Queen shaking hands with the newly elected British Prime Minister, Liz Truss. The old lady doesn't even look like a queen, LOL. Another member of the forum said maybe that's the cleaning woman, but that isn't the woman who has been playing the Queen. The Queen has been a central figure in the QAnon conspiracies from the very beginning. On November 5th, 2017, a week after the first Q drop was posted on 4chan, the anonymous author of the Q drops referenced the monarch. Who is the Queen of England? How long in power? With power comes corruption. What happened to Diana? The author wrote, going on to call evil corrupt and part of a secret society. The Queen next surfaced within the QAnon world in 2019. Then members of the conspiracy movement claimed that the Queen was executed following a military tribunal because she had Princess Diana murdered after Diana learned of a blackmail scheme involving convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. QAnon also pushed aspects of an older conspiracy theory about the Anunnaki, or reptiles, who believers say have controlled humankind since ancient times. These supposed reptiles include George W. Bush, Henry Kissinger, former President Bill Clinton, and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Bob Hope, and Queen Elizabeth, a claim many within the QAnon community referenced in comments on Thursday. Not much longer for Queen Lizard, Georgian Sather, a grifter who leverages his QAnon followers to peddle multivitamins, wrote on his Telegram channel when it was announced that doctors were worried about the Queen's health. Like all major global events, QAnon followers also believe that the death of the Queen is a trigger for the coming storm that will bring about Donald Trump's return to power and see global elites being brought to justice. Let's go. It's all in the plan B. Ready. One member of QAnon Telegram channel wrote, while another added, the Queen's announcement is the beginning. Let's go. Another added that this will trigger the 10 days of darkness the Q predicted would happen when Trump's return was imminent. All right, so that's just some basic background on how Queen Elizabeth is related to this vast conspiracy. Let's talk about Prince Charles for a second. When they initially, this is so funny, I can't even talk about it straight face. When they initially announced the mourning period for Queen Elizabeth, I think it was 12 days, but at some point that got up to 17 days. Prince Charles came out and said that the national mourning period would be 17 days. So 17 is a big number in QAnon. 17 represents Q. It's the 17th letter of the alphabet. So I want to play a video of a compiled list of 17 that is been floating around the QAnon world for quite a while now. Let's play that video.
I want to know really who are the 17%? Who are they? Who the hell are the 17%? Anybody in here from the 17%? Don't raise your hand, it may be dangerous. 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17. So I think I might have been in Washington 17 times in my life. 17, 17, and 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17, 17.
All right, so now we see that the number 17 is an entire thing inside QAnon. So whenever they see the word 17, they think it's a sign, right? That something's coming, the storm is coming. It's 17. So now when King Charles said we will have 17 days of mourning, that was a sign, right? It's 17 days of mourning. So let's put up some of the wilder King Charles conspiracy theories. These are a mishmash of screenshots from Telegram rooms and also from Twitter. So the first one, King Charles, this is a 4chan reference. You'll see it says King Charles equals KC equals 11.3 Q26 once 11.3 verifies as first marker. So I don't know what it means to verify as first marker. You'll see multiple people saying this thing, but King Charles, the 11.3 is K is the 11th letter of the alphabet and C is the third letter. So what exactly that verifies is beyond me. This is another version, King Charles KC 11.3 Q26. So this is a link back to the 4chan piece. It says, think about it logically. The only way is the military fully controlled save and spread once 11.3 verifies as first marker. Biggest advance drop on poll. Let's go to the next one. Another person showing the same 4chan. Here's a bigger version of it. The only way is the military, fully controlled, save and spread. I don't know if these folks think the military is going to come in and destroy the rest of the satanic cabal here. It's really not clear to me. Here's Great Awakening World. This is one of the larger Q Telegram rooms. First arrest will shock the world. Checkmate. Queen is out. King is next. And become exposed. It's a 5G chess game. It's a 5G chess game. Trump is a master chess player. Freemason black and white checkerboard. Epstein case will end the King Charles and collapse the royals. We're at the end. It's deep state darkness. Checkmate. So, you know, obviously the Queen is part of the satanic cabal. If London falls, if she falls, that's the beginning, I'm understanding at least, of getting rid of the satanic global elite cabal of Satanists that is controlling the world. So this guy is responding to that first post. Who did Biden recently recruit? Just spitballing here. Anyway. There was even one on Red Ice TV, and this is another Telegram room, that had a reference to Nostradamus. Obviously, the conspiracy theories love Nostradamus. The first is that Queen Elizabeth II will die circa 2022 at the age of around 96. Prince Charles will be crowned in her stead and become King of the Islands. Prince Charles will be 74 years old in 2022. Taken from Nostradamus, the complete prophecies for the future, first published in 1999. Prediction inside knowledge or instructions, you decide. So now they're saying Nostradamus predicted these particular dates for when Queen Elizabeth would die. And then, you know, one of the wilder conspiracy theories is that Princess Diana is still alive and about to make an announcement. Now, this is just a room that was initially created this week. It could turn out to just be a large grifter room in which they're trying to suck people into follow to sell them things, whether it be Bitcoin, supplemental vitamins, I don't know, a host of things. We've seen this happen a few times with large QAnon rooms where one day you log in and it's turned into a Bitcoin room or somebody selling gold bars. But having said that, some of the largest QAnon rooms were sharing this post, asking people to join this Prince Diana room. So my thing is this: whether or not it turns out to be a grifty room or not is sort of tangential to the problem. The problem being that large QAnon rooms are sharing the conspiracy theory, and that's just further radicalizing these folks, right? So let's take a look at a series of tweets. Nothing can stop what's coming. God bless us all. Follow Diana Queen UK. This is from American Patriot Fighters. This room has almost 20,000 followers online. The next one is we are going live, the People's Queen. It's time, 21/9/2022. Join this channel and make sure that you share it with everyone that you care about because they all need to hear this. In exactly 8 days, I will go live and share the truth. I mean, this is crazy. Princess Diana is obviously not with us. Alive and well, less than a week remaining. Invite everyone. And then we have things done, changed, Q. So, again, who knows where that's going to end up being in another 8 days, but it is just one more conspiracy theory being lopped on to the situation. Another one of the conspiracy theories that I want to talk about a little bit more that I mentioned was that the Queen actually is already dead, and that, they've been trying to hide that for a while. There's been a body double. There's been a CGI thing. And now that was the appropriate time to announce her death, various versions of this story. But I wanted to play this one video because it also ties into a conspiracy theory about why all of these famous musicians are canceling their scheduled tour dates. Let's play that.
News. It's happening. Prepare now. Why are all the celebrities canceling their tours, canceling their shows for the upcoming months? First, I just thought it was The Weeknd and Justin Bieber. It reminds me of the 1,300 CEOs who left their post prior to the world being locked down, as if they knew something was coming. Do these celebrities know something is coming? While everyone is distracted with the Queen's death, the art of war is to seem powerful when you're weak and weak when you're powerful. This could be all a distraction, and she could have passed away a long time ago. As everyone's looking this way, what's going on in the background? Luke Combs canceling because his voice wasn't up to par, just like The Weeknd. Shawn Mendes canceled all of his tour dates. Carlos Santana cancels. And all of these tours are for the upcoming months ahead, where a lot of astrologers are saying some sort of violence could happen,
All right, you get the picture there. So I'm not sure what the significance is here for all of these musicians canceling their tour dates for something about to happen, but there it is. Queen's already dead. So there is a video that came out that was released by the monarchy back in 2019 on Business Insider. It's a video called London Bridge. London Bridge was the plan that was put into place for passing on the monarchy after Queen Elizabeth passed. It was just a discussion of details. So now all of a sudden this week, we've seen this London Bridge video pop up on multiple QAnon channels in relationship to something they're calling Operation London Bridge. Let's play this video.
Operation London Bridge. That's the code name given to the plan in place for the days and weeks after Queen Elizabeth II's passing. The Queen has been sitting on the royal throne since 1952. That's the longest reign of any monarch in British history. And during that time, she's seen over a dozen UK prime ministers, nearly 20 Summer Olympics, and over half a dozen popes. The Queen is the cornerstone to the Commonwealth, the patron to almost 600 organisations and charities, and plays a pivotal role in the UK's alliance with many countries. So her passing will bring about a lot of change. Not just for the United Kingdom, but potentially the world. Her private secretary, the Right Honourable Edward Young, will immediately pass a message on to the acting Prime Minister at the time. That message will likely read, "London Bridge is down." The Prime Minister will then set Operation London Bridge into action. Within minutes, the 15 governments outside of the UK where the Queen is head of state will be informed over a secure line. And that will be followed by the other 36 Commonwealth nations and leaders around the world. The gates of Buckingham Palace will then dawn a black-edge notice of the news. At the same time, a news flash will alert media around the world.
All right, so that's just a snippet of this video that's basically discussing what the plans are in place by the government after she passes away. It's a little bit dramatic, but I don't think that Business Insider meant it to be some sort of giant, vast conspiracy theory. But however, QAnon has picked that up. So one of the large QAnon channels on Telegram, the Great Awakening World, they immediately posted this. Red alert, London has fallen. First domino is down. Watch the water ripple effect. Georgia Guidestone's 1/4 stone down is the first on 4 pillars of the financial market. London fall and the crash, the 3 others as well. They are all connected and balance the global market. Black Swan event, global reset, market crash started. V for Vendetta, prophecy, endgame is now. V for vengeance, Project London Bridge activated. So, again, they're obviously building on a conspiracy. Then they went ahead and posted this movie poster, London Has Fallen, with some other things. Now we go back to the peppy one. Q sent us England. London Bridge is down. Man your stations. NWO wants you to all be controlled like sheep. NWO is the New World Order. Those awake in UK and world know President Trump is the white hat leader of the free world. They welcome him. Think about it. Special ops incoming. Will take out the evil ones in your country alongside your very own British troops working and the global white hat alliance. Debt of gratitude inbound to Trump and British patriots who will overthrow the king and PM. Checkmate, game on. Then we have another one from Great Awakening World. Here's a screenshot of that video we just played. Operation London Bridge coming up to a theater near you. Here's another one. Operation London Bridge coming to a theater near you, but it doesn't look like it will go as planned for them. We'll have 3 days of darkness followed by 10 days of revelations instead. Don't know what those 3 days of darkness or 10 days of revelations is, but my guess is this will just be one more conspiracy theory that they think is going to happen that doesn't happen, and they will get angry. Anyway, so that's where we're at with the Queen. Let's go over to Twitter because not all of this is just on Telegram. We also see remnants of QAnon still on Twitter. This particular one is, just a perfect expression of QAnon. On August 17th, exactly 3 weeks ago, there was a fire at London Bridge Station. London Bridge is the code name for Queen's funeral plans. 17th of August equals 8/8, Elizabeth 88. Charles will turn 888 months old on his birthday, November 14th, equals 11/5. Freemasons equal 115. This is all coded for something, right? Let's look at the next one. Tomorrow marks 1 year anniversary of PP death, which is Prince Charles' 17th wedding anniversary. Didn't the Queen of Comedy, Betty White, die 17 days before her 100th birthday? Betty and Philip both died at age 99. So we know the significance of 17, which of course they bring up twice here. I'm not sure the significance of 99, but again, these guys get sucked into these sort of strange conspiracy theories that are not always obvious to the rest of us. Let's look at the next one. So instead of liberating the mole children from the dumbs, we got the White Hats ordering the royal family to have 17 days of mourning to keep QAnon happy. I thought the goal was to save the world, not entertain LARPers. So this is, again, a reference to King Charles announcing that it would be 17 days of mourning. He upped it from the initial 12. I think it was 12 or 10, I believe. But anyway, point being that they thought the 17 was a sign. And so now they're all just going, nuts. Just another coinkydink, I'm sure, right? So he's saying just another coincidence. Jordan Sadler is one of the biggest QAnon conspiracy theorists. He also hawks vitamins on the side to his followers. So there you go. All right. So that's just sort of an overview of what happened in various QAnon worlds this week. They, globbed onto the Queen's death. They globbed on to the King Charles, 17 days of mourning, which sort of set a reactionary blowout to the London Bridge operation. We'll see where that goes. And we also tragically saw the death of a wife and daughter at the hands of a dad that was sucked into QAnon. And it's something we need to do something about in this country, because if we don't intervene, I think the violence is definitely going to increase. The country's ready to explode, and being sucked into these deep conspiracy theories, it just doesn't help us. There is one more story that came out this week that hasn't publicly, as far as I've seen, been connected to QAnon yet. But I do believe that this guy was also sucked into QAnon based on some posts on his Twitter feed. So for folks that didn't see this, yesterday this came out. A man armed himself, put a clown kind of wig on, multicolored wig on, went into a Dairy Queen and threatened to shoot people and basically said that he was going to reinstall Trump as king of the United States. So I know that sounds absolutely crazy. That is the headline. Let's bring up this article. Armed man arrested after declaring Trump president king at Dairy Queen. An armed Donald Trump supporter who told cops he wanted to restore the president king of the United States was arrested at a Dairy Queen in Pennsylvania, where he said he wanted to kill Democrats and liberals. Jan Stowovi, 61, was arrested without a struggle on multiple felony charges, according to police in Delmont. Several people were inside the fast food restaurant at the time. Stowovi, wearing a yellow safety vest and rainbow wig, was armed with a loaded .40 caliber pistol when officers arrived Saturday to investigate a motorist report of an erratic driver pulling into the Dairy Queen, police said. He declared he was undercover with Pennsylvania State Police working on a major drug sting. Stowovi yelled profanities at officers and called himself a prophet who would kill all the Democrats because Trump was still president. He claimed he was working to restore Trump to president king of the United States, according to police. A Dairy Queen manager reportedly told police Stowovi visited the eatery earlier and placed $120 on the counter as a tip to non-Democrats. Police said they seized 2 other guns and ammunition from Stowovi's car. All right, so that's the basic story. We went to his Facebook, and there were a couple of posts there that I wanted to bring your attention to. The first post was from his church that he was at, and he made multiple reference to this, several posts. But if you look at it, let's bring that up. This is a letter. It basically says, "Dear Jan, we have become increasingly concerned about your behavior over the course of the past month. We are willing to overlook your outbursts during the church service and forgive your inappropriate comments on Sunday, 8/28/22. We allowed you to attend the service last Sunday, 9/4/2022, because you promised there would not be any more outbursts. Your clown costume, so I think this must be the same wig that he wore in the Dairy Queen. Your clown costume and full makeup frightened many of our congregants. We cannot allow you to return to church dressed in costume again. While you remained silent during the service, your constant gesturing was very distracting to all in attendance. You ignored that vow of silence during Sunday school and once again became argumentative and belligerent. Your behavior following the service could only be seen as threatening, and it is with a heavy heart that we must ban you from the property of Barron Run UMC from this point going forward. We care very deeply for you and only wish that you are able to seek out the help that you need. We wish you well and will continue to pray for you and your recovery." All right, so that is the letter that he received from the church. I also wanted to show a second screenshot. This is a video that he posted right below that, a few posts down, from Pastor Greg Locke. So he is obviously sharing and is adherent of Pastor Greg Locke. So who is Greg Locke? Well, let's talk about that. Greg Locke is a QAnon pastor. I'm going to pull up a couple of videos for you to see and hear in his own words who he is. So let's pull up those videos and play those.
God's about to bring the whole house down, ladies and gentlemen. These bunch of sex trafficking mongrels are about to be exposed. These bunch of pedophiles in Hollywood are going to be exposed for who they are. I don't care what you think about fraudulent Sleepy Joe. He's a sex trafficking, demon-possessed mongrel. He's of the left. He ain't no better than the Pope and Oprah Winfrey and Tom Hanks and the rest of that wicked crowd. God is going to bring the whole house down. I said he's going to bring the whole house down. He's going to burn the whole thing to the ground. He's going to expose all these bunch of pedophiles. I'm telling you, he's going to expose Kamala Harris for the Jezebel demon that she is. I don't know why pastors don't talk about this stuff. Well, I do. They don't want to seem crazy. I'm already crazy. Do you really think it's that much of an epidemic? Do you honestly believe, we're going to get some more crazy, do you honestly believe, Pastor Locke, that the military uncovered tunnels beneath the Capitol building and beneath the White House and in the Five-Fingered Lakes? Do you really believe that they found kids? Yeah, both live ones and dead ones. And if you disagree with that, and if you try to discount that, and if you try to cover that, and if you try to keep that on the DL, you're just as complicit as Hunter Biden and the rest of them bunch of crack-smoking perverts. I'll tell you, I'm so sick of HBO and the rest of this crowd saying, well, all y'all do, y'all bunch of Qs, y'all bunch of Qs, y'all bunch of Qs, y'all bunch of Qs, y'all bunch of perverts, and y'all just nervous because you know we got your number. Everybody says, well, when you going to apologize for being a false prophet? When y'all going to get the memo that I didn't get it wrong? Everybody like, well, you know, Trump's back. Trump ain't never went nowhere. He ain't back. He's always been around. He's the legitimate president of the United States of America. I don't care if you stand up or clap or not. I'm telling you, Donald Trump is the legitimate president of the United States of America. You got to smoke a lot of dope in your mama's basement not to believe that fact.
All right, so Greg Locke is clearly an adherent of QAnon conspiracy theories. You heard just a mishmash of them. He uses them when he preaches. He is a pastor at a church in Tennessee. And a lot of QAnon folks obviously follow him. And he mixes this in with the religious aspects. So whether Jan is entirely devoted to QAnon or not, we have not been able to determine that 100% yet. I'm sure we'll learn more about this in the days to come. But he was absolutely sharing a Greg Locke video on his Facebook. So that's an indication that he was, at least, in the very least, affected by QAnon conspiracy theories. And that might be part of the motivation for what he was doing, why he did. So, of course, I mean, this was just ripe to have a meme come up. So within hours of this story being posted on Twitter, somebody did put up a meme. Let's put this up because it's kind of funny, actually. So there it is. I'm here to restore Trump as king of the United States. Sir, this is a Dairy Queen. All right. So on that note, let's talk a little bit about other conspiracy theories coming out of QAnon that we haven't quite touched in yet. There is a QAnon guy who has a large following on Telegram. His name is Ghost Ezra. And I want to talk about Ghost Ezra for a second in relationship to this last piece, because there's also a weave of anti-Semitic things that come in. So it's not just the Christian fascism that we hear from coming out of Greg Locke's mouth. Part and parcel to that is that the Jews are part of the satanic cabal. They're part of the New World Order. You know, they're satanic. They are going to do evil things. You know, it's just woven into just basic Nazi principles. And I don't think it gets, you know, discussed a lot out there in the open. A lot of it is just sort of coded language, dog whistles. So it's not as blatant as some people would imagine it to be, but it's still there. So I wanted to pull up this article about Ghost Ezra that was in Vice News in 2021. QAnon's anti-Semitism is finally being displayed in full. There's a power struggle brewing among QAnon grifter influencers, and it's getting extreme and ugly. So grifter influencers, these are the guys that have these large channels that I mentioned earlier, and they're hawking Bitcoin, they're hawking gold bars, they're hawking vitamins. They've even hawked something known as urine therapy. Yes, you heard that correctly, urine therapy. This is when you take your own urine, you pour it over your eyes, you drink it because it's supposed to cure you. It's absolutely asinine and dangerous, actually, in some levels. All right, so there's a war brewing within the QAnon community. On one side, you have an upstart anonymous account called Ghost Ezra, who has amassed a massive following in the space of a few months by spreading wild claims about President Joe Biden being a fake played by Hollywood star James Wood in a mask. Yes, this is correct. In recent weeks, the account has become more and more extreme, spreading Holocaust denial and neo-Nazi content. On the other side is a group of established influencers who spent years promoting QAnon by pretending that the conspiracy theory isn't intrinsically anti-Semitic. But these influencers who have a smaller combined following than Ghost Ezra aren't worried about the anti-Semitic content itself. They're just worried that the extremist language being used to express that anti-Semitism is damaging the QAnon brand. Do you see how disinformation accounts hurt our movement? CJ Truth, part of the establishment QAnon influencer group, wrote on Telegram last week. For all of their outrage, none of the established influencers have debunked the Holocaust denial content or anti-Semitic posts. Instead, they have focused on the damage that being so openly anti-Semitic is doing to their ability to recruit new followers to the movement. At the time when the QAnon movement is in a state of flux with former President Donald Trump out of office and the anonymous poster known as Q Gone Silent, experts see the embrace of more extremist views as a dangerous trend. They point out that Ghost Ezra's account has become a hub for radicalization where more extreme groups can recruit QAnon followers. So this is generally true. As things have progressed into 2022, what we've seen is that a lot of these movements are sort of conflating together onto each other. So you will now see members of Proud Boys joining up, these active clubs that are associated with neo-Nazi groups. You'll see them joining up White Lives Matter and doing white lives activism. You'll see a lot of these folks morphing into the QAnon conspiracy theories joined by the anti-vaxxers. So this has been going on now for almost a year where these things are sort of conflating together. And I think that's more dangerous because they're all sort of feeding off each other at this point. So the Ghost Ezra channel has 335,000 plus members. So it has a very large following. On average, I'll see on a Telegram channel, even for a big channel, maybe 8,000 members. A lot of the more extreme channels have as few as 200, 300 members. So having 335,000 members is quite huge. All right. So back to the article. The channel was set up by a prominent QAnon influencer who goes by IET, revealed by Vice News to be Denver-based chiropractor Craig Longley. He recruited many of the biggest names in the QAnon world to help run the account. But despite their combined following and years dedicated to the movement, Ghost Ezra has quickly become the leading channel for QAnon content on Telegram. No one knows who is behind the content, but their rise to power within the QAnon community has been extraordinarily fast. A Twitter account using the name Ghost Ezra was set up in December 2020 and within weeks gained over 18,000 followers. The account was a prolific poster, and in the early hours of January 6 alone, they posted a stream of over 80 tweets and retweets, according to an archived version of the account. The post contains memes, videos, and messages claiming that Trump was about to return to office. So when the account went down as Twitter's major QAnon purge in the wake of the Capitol riots, it quickly reemerged on Telegram. They're freed from any sort of moderation. The account quickly became a massive hit with QAnon followers. In the space of a few weeks, it racked up over 330,000 followers. The account has become so popular that a lawyer for Ezra Cohen, a former Trump official who many believed was Q, felt the need to clarify on Twitter that his client was not running the account. So basically what Vice is talking about now is after January 6th, Twitter decided that it needed to purge many of these accounts off of their platform, which they did. They permanently banned them. But that just didn't make them go away. They all went onto Telegram. And when they got onto Telegram, they became more blatant and more radicalized in their opinions because they knew that they no longer had to sort of talk in covered language. They didn't have to use dog whistles. They could just actually come out and say like Hitler's cool, which you'll see these guys saying. So in one way, and we've seen this before, when movements get thrown off a major platform like Facebook or Twitter, it doesn't make them go away. They just move on to another platform that doesn't regulate hate speech, and then they become more emboldened and they just make the blatant statements, and they get together with other people that feel the same, also making blatant statements. And that's basically what's happened here. So after being kicked off Twitter, going on to Telegram, becoming more radicalized, the underlying anti-Semitic content that Ghost Ezra started posing on Telegram was pretty blatant. Let's take a look at what some of that is. The account began by promoting the neo-Nazi film Europa: The Last Battle, a 10-part film that claims Jews created communism and deliberately started both world wars as part of a plot to found Israel by provoking the innocent Nazis who were only defending themselves. Almost all the 4,000 comments responding to the post on Telegram are positive, with very few pushing back against the openly racist message. On Tuesday night, the account posted more Holocaust denial content. The post attracted over 3,000 comments, the second of which was a link to a neo-Nazi channel whose tagline is "Exposing the Jews is our mission." This network effect has been getting QAnon supporters more radicalized into more extreme groups is deeply troubling. As QAnon has slowly adopted more extreme narratives, violent extremism actors have adopted more salient conspiracy theories, Argentino said. There is a symbolic relationship that has formed, and not for the better. As media reports picked up on Ghost Ezra's anti-Semitic rants, the influencers in We the Media channel attempted to distance themselves from the QAnon movement and from Ghost Ezra's claims. Having said that, though, I don't think it matters. Point being that these folks are kind of, getting together. They're radicalizing each other. The dog whistling anti-Semitism, as far as I'm concerned, was always there. The satanic pedophile New World Order, the banksters, the George Soros parts, these are all dog whistles to anti-Semitism. So the fact that they're just blatantly embracing sort of Nazi things right now is on brand once the gloves have been removed. Ghost Ezra, however, is also into another conspiracy theory that people might be blown away by hearing in 2022, and that's flat Earth. That's right, the flat Earth theory. So back in 2021, he posted this kind of crazy video that sort of explained how his flat Earth theory goes. Let's go ahead and play that. But that's not only the time that he's done it. He's just posting about flat Earth on his channel, in fact, this week. Here's another post from Ghost Ezra. This is his new account. Last Thursday, Chinese astronauts captured the above image of the flat Earth. Apparently, the rocket engineers on the Shenzhou 14th mission forgot to attach a fisheye lens to the camera. Yes, the straight edge of the Earth confirms there is no curvature from 248 miles above the Earth. So the claim with the flat earthers is that all of those curvature photos that show the curve of the Earth are done with a fisheye lens, and that it's not real, and that the Earth is actually flat, which is kind of crazy. I also wanted to show another post that he had this week. Ninth Circle elite Satanist child sex sacrifice cult rule Europe and engage in child trafficking, put on human hunts where kidnapped, drugged children were stripped naked, raped, tortured, hunted down by horseback in the woods, and killed ritually by nobility and their guests who drink their victims' blood. These powerful few also turned to cannibalism and ate parts of their offerings to the demonic deity they revere. So this, again, just gives you an idea of where this guy is coming from. All right, enough of Ghost Ezra, enough of the flat Earth. Let's move on to some hot takes this week, because we have a few of those as well. So let's pull up this what the fuck hot take right here from Lauren Boebert, because she is just a perpetual hot take machine. Let's play this video about minimum wage.
Started working at McDonald's when I was 15. And, McDonald's, they had a minimum wage that was low enough to invest in a 15-year-old like me at that time. And so we're kind of doing away with that as well right now. So how many youth are going to be robbed of that experience to start working? And
how many youth are going to be robbed of the experience as working as an underpaid person is beyond me. But I think the bigger issue I have here is that Lauren seems to not understand that fast food jobs are actually jobs that are held by people that are heads of household in the country. We have seen, as we've seen manufacturing jobs and other areas of industry collapse in the country, service sector jobs have become the dominant employer of folks that make minimum wage. So this is what I'm saying now isn't crazy. That's just a fact of the matter. So the fact that people want to make this claim that it's only teenagers that take these jobs is ludicrous. And I'd say on top of that anybody that wants to say it's about skilled labor, also ludicrous. At base, anybody that works full-time in this country should be able to pay for their rent and put food on the table. That's just the way it is. So saying that it should be $22 an hour as a minimum, that shouldn't be crazy. If our minimum wage had actually kept pace with productivity and inflation, it would be over that. So, again, this is just the right, basically saying people should not be able to make a living and using this old trope that is absolutely unfounded that these jobs, fast food jobs, other minimum wage jobs are going to teenagers. And we should preserve this idea that these kids should work for barely nothing because they don't have to worry about paying rent. They live with their parents, right? Hot take from Lauren. Let's go to the next one. Debate me, bro. Debate me, bro. This is a good one.
But AOC was just on the cover of GQ. But I just want to say this: the guy that wrote it, Wesley Lowery, though, he did, and obviously GQ's fake. I don't believe anything they say. But one of his paragraphs at the beginning, he described Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as the third most popular politician behind guys named Trump and Biden. And I almost, sadly, believe that's true. So is that true? Do you think she's the third most popular politician? in Washington, D.C.?
Well, it depends on how you define popular. I don't know many people that like her very much. I think popular is someone that is well liked. AOC, she's not very smart, Alex. The truth is that she doesn't write her bills. She doesn't even understand her own agenda. I've challenged her many times to a debate, and she still won't accept my challenge. I would love to talk with her about the Green New Deal. I would love to talk to her about economic policy and business. But, tragically, as far as she got was being a bartender. And from what I've heard, she doesn't even make drinks that well. So I'm not popularity, and no one really cares about her being on the cover of that magazine that I thought was for men, but clearly the left, they don't care.
Okay. Where do I begin with this one? Marjorie Taylor Greene is absolutely the poster child for the Dunning-Kruger effect in this video. Here she is basically saying, I am smarter than AOC. I know more. I'm right. But Marjorie Taylor Greene just doesn't even realize that she is not skilled enough to even have that debate to begin with. This is somebody that has gone on record saying that if we went to solar energy, that we would not be able to run our refrigerators, which is just absolutely absurd and untrue. Charlie Kirk, who is the guy that is interviewing her in this video, he works for Turning Point USA. This is supposed to be this college organization that is for the right wing on college campuses. Charlie Kirk has never graduated from college, so it's interesting that this is the kind of organization that he is running. But why would AOC debate you on any of this, Marjorie Taylor Greene? But this is just like the debate me bro culture that is on Twitter just slays me, because half the time the people that are insisting on having debates aren't worthy of debating. There's just no point to it. It would be a waste of time. But they still believe that they are right, and that the other person simply isn't debating them because they're smarter, because they know better, because their arguments are so sound that they would be destroyed if the debate actually happened, when it's actually the opposite that is true. There's no point in AOC debating Marjorie Taylor Greene on the Green New Deal. There just isn't. Marjorie has shown who she is. But this is, we've seen this time and time again. Debate me, bro. All right. Is it the end times? That's my next clip.
As you see the end draw near, we know that we are in the last of the last days. But it's not a time to complain about it. It's not a time to get upset about it. This is a time to know that you were called to be a part of these last days. You get to have a role in ushering in the second coming of Jesus. How cool is that?
So this is kind of a scary little clip we have from Lauren Boebert. She is obviously a Christian fascist. She's talking about end times, right? This is the book of Revelations. The end times are coming. We're living in them now. You're lucky to be a part of ushering the second coming of Christ in. I want to also point out that part of the belief system is supporting the Zionism state of Israel, right? The reason they support it isn't because they care about Jewish people or Judaism or want to see Jewish people protected from anti-Semitism. They don't care about any of that. They want Israel to be there simply because they believe that is what ushers in the second coming of Christ. So it's pretty anti-Semitic when you get at the base of it. Israel only exists to further their cause. And then when Jesus comes, they are fond of saying that all the Jews will perish in hell because they don't accept Jesus as their savior. So Christian fascism is on the rise in the country. I think it's probably the most dangerous of the extremist views that we are now looking at out there, because it combines elements from so many other viewpoints. And I think a lot of these folks are absolutely motivated by that belief system. I think religious zealotry, isn't just something that happens with extreme Muslims. It happens with extreme religious views across the board, no matter what religion is attached. So it's something we need to keep our eye on. We have several Christian fascists that are in Congress. We have several more that are currently running for office. They're openly embracing this idea that the United States of America is a Christian fascist state. It's also why we have seen the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And I think that they are going to be looking at gay marriage next. So it's something we need to keep an eye on. All right, let's turn our attention to Carrie Lake.
Got us going on Make America Great. Anybody else here love President Trump? It is faith and it is family that makes America great. Truly, it's faith and family. And if defending our faith and defending our family makes us extremists in Joe Biden's eyes, well, so be it. Come at me, bro. Bring it on. Bring it on.
So that's Carrie Lake combining, religious beliefs while she is campaigning. She is campaigning at a church in Arizona. And there's a second part to this video. Let's play that as well.
You can call us whatever you want, Joe. You can call us extremists. You can call us domestic terrorists. You know who else was called a lot of names his whole life? Jesus. And he never stopped. He never stopped. They called him names right up until his death. So why should we care what Joe Biden thinks of us? Do you think that our founding fathers really cared what King George said about them? I don't think so. And they all had bounties on their head, by the way. Hopefully that doesn't get to that in this country.
So here we see Carrie Lake pretty much making the claim that herself and other right-wing extremists, those that participated in the January 6th insurrection, that they are all the victims here, that they are standing up for the correct values that they believe in, for the country, for patriotism, and also for Jesus Christ. They believe that their viewpoint of the world is akin to what Jesus Christ's teachings are. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. It reminds me of that famous Gandhi quote, "I like your Christ, I dislike your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ." I mean, if you read any of the gospel literature, you would see quite clearly that the kind of hatred that they preach, it just isn't who Jesus Christ is. Like, if anything, you could make the case that Jesus Christ believed in more left-wing ideals such as socialism, right? Whether it's breaking around the fish, sharing with everybody, open up your table to the prostitutes, like reaching out to people that are hated by the rest of the world. So again, this is just a brand of evangelicalism that has taken hold of the country. It's quite extreme. It is very right-wing, and it is infiltrating our government. All right. So I also wanted to play a clip that Trump posted on his Truth Social this week, because apparently he wants to rule in perpetuity. Trump forever, folks. Trump forever. He wants to install himself as dictator, king, whatever you want to call that, ruler of the United States forever. It's kind of crazy. I want to end this segment with playing a interview that happened in Tahunga, California, with a Trump supporter last year, just because I also think it gives us a viewpoint into how these folks think about patriotism, how they think about religion, how they think about the left, and the way this all ties together. Let's play that.
Did a booger.
Do I have a booger?
No.
No, you're good.
People are.
Oh yeah, it takes you to a whole different side.
Filing.
Taking a fucking picture of you, cocksucker. Go to the bathroom.
What?
All right. So, one more question for you. So, how do you feel about the First Amendment? Do you think that it's being properly?
The First Amendment is being. Oh my God. The First Amendment is being taken away from us, especially here in California. Gavin Newsom does not have the legal authority to force us to cover our mouths. That is anti-constitutional. That is against our freedom to speak freely. He has to get, he can't just make it a law and enforce it on people. And that's what he's doing, and there's nobody stopping him. The people are trying to stop him. The First Amendment is being silenced. It's being taken away. There's people like Antifa across the street, or BLM. They're terrorist organizations who are anti-American.
What do you mean by anti-American?
Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. They're not about Black lives. Last week,
Why are they a terrorist organization?
Last week, the people admitted the money that they get donated to Black Lives Matter goes to the Democrat Party to get Trump out of office. They admitted that. So you've got big companies supporting Black Lives Matter. They don't care about Black lives at all. They care about people they think who are innocent people getting killed by the police. And it's not true. It's a lot. There are more white people getting killed than black people. And yes, there's more white people than black people, not the point. Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. They don't care about Black lives. If they care about Black lives, they would care about Trammell. They would care about David Dorn, but they don't. They think that they called Rashard, I'm sorry for his last name, they called Rashard an innocent black man. He resisted arrest, fought with police, took the taser, shot them with the taser, and they shot back. The police did their job. That man was not innocent. He resisted arrest. He shouldn't have done that. The cops did their jobs. So that's why.
Can I press you on one thing? So we talked a little bit about the First Amendment. How do you feel about press and protesters being tear gassed recently, as well as beaten by the police?
Okay, so you're not on both sides. Okay, here's the deal. Protesters, you guys are calling protesters the ones that are burning down buildings, that are beating police officers, that are throwing concrete, that are throwing ice, like frozen water bottles at police. Police do not deserve that. They're not fucking protesters. They are terrorists. They are not protesters. This is protesting. This burning buildings down, destroying a police station is not protesting. You cannot tell me that that's called protesting. And you guys think that they're not fucking innocent. The press and covers it getting tear gassed, they're doing shit. They need to get the fuck out.
So how do you feel about the fact that I myself am actually neutral and was beaten by a police officer?
Nice.
I was near the federal building covering the protests.
Okay. Were you with all the people who were...
I was not. I was with other press.
I honestly can't speak on it.
Okay.
I'm not probably nothing to do with yes. Andy, no. They took him out. They beat him up. I think he had a brain bleed. And he did nothing but be a gay conservative journalist. That's it. So yeah, people get caught up. People are being beat for being on the wrong side of the law. And that's it. And then they try to cover it up by saying, oh, I was just covering the story. But then you're with people who are beating up people, throwing ice at police officers. The police have done nothing wrong in this whole thing. I don't understand why let me start up again. I know exactly why. Obama came in, he created Black Lives Matter to split this country up. You've got the unintelligent people over on Black Lives Matter. There are also a lot of the people who represent Black Lives Matter aren't even black. They're white people. So how do you represent if it's not even your color? Okay. It's not right. Nobody up there is black. And they're all yelling Black Lives Matter. That's it.
Thank you.
What else?
All right, so I wanted to play that video. We shot that last year in Tahunga. That's Sean Beckner Carr Mitchell asking the questions. But I wanted to play it because I think it gives a really good insight into how these hardcore ardent Trump supporters think and how they view patriotism, First Amendment, Second Amendment, how they view Antifa, BLM. Understanding how these folks think is step one, I think, into really trying to fix some of the problems we're experiencing in the country, because the country's ready to explode. I don't think that that's a crazy statement. All right. Now we're going to by any means necessary, because we have to have a good laugh sometimes at some of these things. It's just all too just drudge and serious and depressing. So let's check in with Kyle Rittenhouse.
People right there.
So you sort of have to love that parody where somebody has basically put in a guy playing a violin behind Kyle Rittenhouse on the stand crying like he's the victim, even though he murdered people. He murdered people. That's not up for debate. Kyle also went on Tucker Carlson. Let's see how that went.
What did you make of the President of the United States calling you a white supremacist?
Mr. President, if I could say one thing to you, I would urge you to go back and watch the trial and understand the facts before you make a statement.
All right, good interview with Tucker there. Now let's check in with one of our favorites, Lauren Boebert. What is going on with her this week? But that wasn't all. She had a little bit more to say on a second interview.
America, Joe Biden needs to resign. Kamala and Nancy can follow him out the freaking door. Too many Americans have sacrificed everything. Too many Americans have died. This failed leadership has to end. The disgusting path that they are taking us down has to be stopped now. And stay tuned as I prepare to take steps available to me as a United States Congresswoman to bring real leadership back to America and back to the world.
And of course, because we talked about Twisted Tea last week, I wanted to show you this one where somebody has turned the Twisted Tea posse and party against Trump. All right. Okay, that one just cracks me up. And because we talked about QAnon today, let's check in with the QAnon shaman being interviewed by somebody from Friends, perhaps?
What the? So what do you think?
What is that?
I painted my face.
You painted your face? Why?
Well, you know, support the team.
Well, you can't walk around like that.
Why not?
Because it's insane.
Some funny stuff there. Anyway, thanks for joining me today on Right Wing Insanity Report. Also wanted to discuss some housekeeping since we are pre-recording the show and doing it as a premiere. There's only one call-in and there's multiples of us. It's the only way we can make it work. If you do drop any super chats into the show, what I will do is address whatever questions you have the following week. So, for example, if you drop a super chat in today's show, I will go ahead and start the show off next week discussing those super chats. So I think that's the best way to get to your questions and comments. So feel free to do that. And then also, if you see any funny memes out there or any good parody, whatnot, go ahead and drop me a line because I'm on the look for some of this stuff. There's some really great stuff that happens on Twitter when people see some of these crazy things. And I think part of coping is always having a good laugh at the expense of some of this craziness. Otherwise, we're all going to lose our minds. It's serious, but there's also a time and a place to have a good laugh. So anyway, thanks for joining me on Right Wing Insanity Report. I'm Tina-Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup, and we will see you next week.